One sec.
Okay, I came back in time.
Welcome back.
Remember, make a watermark tab.
Yep.
Oh yeah, I gotta do that. Well, I have flaming hot Cheetos, but I got no cherry Coke, so
I
sad.
just got water
Sad.
and some chocolate chip macadamia nut cookies.
Damn fancy. It sounds.
Yeah, I mean,
Nuts are good.
there's like a
You're
nice.
salty though.
I have a nice like marketplace store nearby my school, so I got dinner and some of that stuff today. Like an Italian grinder, which is actually really good. I think it does lemonade and the cookies.
Is a grinder a sub?
Yeah,
Because I only know the app.
a grinder's like a sub, a hoagie, or sandwich.
Hmm.
Grinder's more New Englander term.
Gotcha. See, I'm from Philly, so it's a hoagie to me.
Fair. What do you call it, Rosie?
Call what?
A sub sandwich, like a grinder, a submarine sandwich, or a hoagie, or
I just call it a sub sandwich.
Oh.
Paper
I
Star,
don't really get
relax.
I don't really get them, so.
Paper Star, relax. Calm down.
Damn.
You didn't have to go there. Yes, you did.
Oh yeah, Florida, you get that fucking Grubhub promo. You gotta get that pizza emote.
Care about the pizza remote?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just have my my fancy ass scholar or summoner just eat a pizza in her nice ass robes.
You know the worst part? Apparently, Grubhub does not exist in Canada.
A shame.
Canadian users cannot get it.
See you, Robin.
That sucks.
What am I gonna do? Oh, you have to open up a window capture. Yeah.
Speaking of which, Rosie got in today finally.
Oh, nice.
Pretties. There it is.
Oh, you know what? Maybe I should stream it. I just keep forgetting.
Hey, up to you. Oh, I made the watermark tier already. Oh, fantastic. Let me just
Hold on, I gotta open OST.
Yeah, I gotta open up Spotify so I can play the OST.
Alright, where's my
Oh, it's look, it defaulted to Shamspear. We'll start there. It's fine.
Good.
As it should. We'll start with that, sure. Actually, on second thought, we'll just go in order this time.
We'll just go in order.
Last time I shuffled it and I was like, well...
Mm-hmm.
How's the audio, folks?
What?
What? Oh, sorry. I did the wrong thing. Start with putting Gabriel. We'll get there. We're going in order. Right? I think that's the best way to do it. Like we did with the games, kind of just go by...
Yeah.
I mean,
Go
it
in
is in order if you look at the...
Yeah, it's an order by game, which is fine.
And alphabetical by game, so like,
Mhm.
literally the first character we're doing is Angel Star.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just gonna start.
Yeah, okay. I'm on the tier list, so yeah, we're good, whenever.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Oh, let me, real quick, let me, put Stream Kit back up. There we go, and just put that there. Looks good to me. We made our names really big so we can actually, like, read them this time.
Wow, crazy. Oh,
Nice.
last minute. tweet about a stream.
Oh shit!
Let's
I'm
go.
gonna do an @ here or something and be like switching gears. Pokemon,
Mhm.
not Pokemon. And then let me do a twit. Probably. Alright, haha, you're gonna see my Twitter. Big deal. Oh, thank God nobody decided to retweet Spot. Would have been bad. Alright, I am ready. Oh, I did it wrong. Fuck. Oh well, whatever. I forgot to include the link. Stupid me. Sorry, you're gonna get another notification, my bad. Where is my tweets? Oh, thank you.
Tweets are gone.
Why did it? Well, okay, whatever. You know what? I hate Twitter. Seeing me bumble with this thing in real time.
Alright, we're out.
Why did it format it like this? I hate everything. Alright, here we go.
Hold on.
Open one
I
password.
hope my stream is updated because I don't want to change tabs now. So.
So,
Yeah?
I'm assuming when we get to characters that are in more than one game, like, I guess, big
we
example,
should
Edgeworth.
we should probably save them. I don't know.
No, I think we should just talk about them entirely for all the
We'll
games.
just talk about it entirely because, you know, it's just all spoilers and we're just going to spoil everything.
Yeah, see, it's hard to split it up the way that we normally would.
Hmm.
So we'll have to deal with it.
I would have done main, protagonist, and then assistant, and then, you know, but...
Yeah, but I didn't make this. So it's like... There are so few characters in the original trilogy. Looking at this,
I know, it's crazy.
It's ridiculous. That's wild. Oh, good, Missile's here.
Good, the best, doggo. Actually,
I'm partial to
actually
Toby.
watching a few of,
I say
I was
Toby's
watching-
better than Missile, but that's just me.
What are you saying there, Rosie?
I recently rewatched, Tim's... Well, mostly, like, just kind of perused through Tim's Ghost Tricks stream, and I'm like, Missile, so cute.
That's
He's
true, Missile
so
is in
cute.
Ghost Trick.
I miss him.
Mhm.
I miss Missile.
I guess we will follow the alphabetical order, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's way
Yeah.
easier. Okay.
And I'm just
Yeah,
gonna say
might
right
as
now,
well.
I guess we should. I honestly suggest we just go like, I don't know,
It's
talk
hard.
about them
right?
entirely in the game, because like,
Mhm.
so there will be spoilers basically. what
Yeah,
I'm trying
so
to say.
like,
Yeah. There's going to be spoilers.
like, be careful. Oh, I should probably put like a beware spoilers in the.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I can't do that. Whatever. Sorry, I'm a bad streamer, y'all. I apologize.
Aren't we all? We're all bad streamers.
Why did I put a space? I'm not fixing it. Relax.
A space.
Alright, so I guess we'll just start with Angel Star. What an interesting first choice.
She's okay.
I like Angel Star, actually. He's, like, objectively not that great, but, like, I still love her.
Mm-hmm.
She's going in day one of.
Oh, wait, hold on. Oh, this is a different. Oh, I got a different one. Okay.
Oh,
alright,
I just
never
clicked the one that was
mind.
linked.
I switched back. It's fine.
Okay.
It's fine. I clicked on it. Okay.
Gotcha.
This is not
You know,
alphabetical.
I'm gonna give her.
Put her
give
in
her B, in
A.
my opinion.
I think I'll put, I don't know. Sometimes I
She's
feel like I
a-
should put plus and minus tiers, but that's so many tiers.
Too
I
many
forgot
tiers.
I put Waga Eye and Toby up on S tier already.
Oh,
I don't
waggy.
care.
Good. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I'll put Angel Star in like high B, I think, honestly.
It's like
She's fun and she's really pretty, but like there's not much going on there.
she's like a C for me.
Mm. Yeah, no, I don't. April, May, I mean, like, whatever.
F.
Honestly, yeah, I hate April May so much.
She is so useless.
She's like, I don't enjoy her character, like that whole, I'm so cute and fun, but like, I'm also like a bitch.
No, it's just like even then she
I'm
doesn't.
so cute, but I'm also a cunt.
Here's
Mhm.
also the thing: there's other paid characters that do it way
Better than-
fucking better than her.
I feel like considering how low I ranked Turnabout Sisters, I should probably rank April May pretty low too.
Her,
But
o-
she's
her,
only
her only redeeming thing is like her
Jiggle?
breakdown's kind of funny.
The jiggling, yeah, I know.
Yeah, and it's
Mhm.
kind of funny actually. I like.
Hmm.
Mhm.
and it's the first of many characters that will have
Assets.
Yeah.
well like the Harvey Judge.
Yes, yes. One of my favorite bloopers from the Ace Attorney anime comes from Trials and Tribulations,
Yeah.
where the judge is where it's like, where Dahlia's like, this thought made my heart go pitter patter, and the judge is like, I want to pitter patter all over your
All over your
tits.
shit. Oh my god, it was so funny.
It was
I wanna
the voice
pitter-patter
actress
all
for
over
Dahlia
your
just
tits.
freaking lost it.
was
Oh my
so
god, it
good.
was so funny. Anyway,
I loved it.
what's next? Bellboy.
Sorry, I'm jamming because it's I'm doing Apollo Justice.
Nice. I just went with DGS again, but I'm going in order.
I'm going Bellboy with A because honestly I like
I
how
do
he's,
enjoy
like,
Bellboy.
He's a really great character.
Yeah.
He makes that case a lot better because
Yeah.
like I was part of a murder case. Yeah.
I'll put it.
Yeah,
I'll put him in B.
He wasn't too interesting for
Mhm.
me, so I'll just put C.
I'll put him in B.
Oh, he's like, I've always wanted to write an affidavit or something like
Yeah.
that.
That's
He's
him.
just so
That's him.
enthusiastic
What?
about everything, and I appreciate that.
He's like that's him. Yeah, I just want to say that. I'm like,
Hmm.
okay.
Oh God, Cody Hackins.
He's okay.
Yeah, I'm
Like,
gonna put
he's
him in
your-
C.
He's like your like stereotypical
Hey,
like
D
overactive
for
kid,
Cody.
Mhm.
Eh.
Like, for Cody, aha, like the kind of like the stereotypical like super fan.
My favorite thing about Cody Hackins is how smart he actually is.
Actually, he's actually quite smart.
Yeah, like, what are they teaching these kids in school? Quantum physics? Like, that's a funny line. But yeah, I don't know. I don't have much to say about Cody. He's just kind of there. I don't really remember his testimony very much.
Yeah. I
Maybe
know.
his testimony is just to prove that, oh, Jackhammer, it was like, the samurai outfit was not, bow
Mhm.
powers,
Yeah.
it was Jackhammer.
Yeah.
And he died as the
And he
Steel
died. He's like
Samurai.
he lost, and then Cody like started crying and stuff.
I just
Mhm.
love that. There's only one line from Cody's testimony that I love, and it's not about Cody at all. It's like, I don't care if he's a child or a prosecuting attorney. Nobody should lie in court. And Edger's like, what do you mean by a prosecuting or attorney?
No,
That is
I
funny.
love that line.
That is a great line.
that is really good.
Oh, yeah, that's right. He did prove it was Studio 2 and not Studio 1. Well, that's good for him, I guess, but it's not going to change my ranking of the dude. Oh man, now we're getting into a fun character. I love Damon Kent, actually. I think
I like him.
I think he's,
I like his theme.
I like his
He's-
theme.
He's got a bold ass fucking outfit. I gotta say.
Yeah. Oh, no, I think that's
I'll
that's
put-
Gilf range actually. Paper Star.
He's
Damon Gant is
got-
65.
Yeah.
Wait.
He's got very.
Wait, is he?
Why
Hold
is
on.
it on
I
shuffle?
got-
I didn't tell it to put it on shuffle. Bar.
Hold on. Is he really? Hold on. I have to go in the Ace3 Google.
He's
Yeah,
got
okay,
very
he
big
is- alright.
ambitions, so I
Mhm.
will say honestly, A.
Also, he was like chief of police for like years.
Yeah.
So
He was chief
Yeah,
of
he
had
police.
so
No,
many
for 2
people-
years actually.
He had so many people in his fingertips. Honestly, it's an A or an S.
Yeah, no, I'm putting it. I think I'll put him in. Not Meekins. Don't grab Meek. Where did I grab Meekins from?
yeah, let's go. Vegans in S tier. We are. Are we there?
No, we're not there. Meekins is right below Kant on the list, so I just grabbed him. Yeah, no, he's not a very like he doesn't really understand how to blackmail somebody, I guess. I really like that his
He's
pun
just
is
very
like
bad at
his
doing it.
his pun is dans mon gant, which means in my glove, which I thought was really cool.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah, so he's got him in the palm of his hand, like that's the whole thing. Good pun. And I like how manipulative he is and how much he like
He's
is
very
he's like he has the aura of nice guy down to like a really good degree. Like even though he's like such a sleazebag, he's like really nice to everybody. It's cool. I don't know if anybody else has anything to say about him. This is like the first actually kind of major character that we've had to talk about.
Yeah.
By the way, we're not set, but like I guess like I don't know like the criteria for this because characters are so wildly individual. Like we're not just gonna rank all the killers in like a killers category. They're just gonna be spread out, and that's the way it's gonna be.
Yeah.
So we're on
The personality and then obviously design D Vasquez.
Oh yeah, I love Dee Vasquez.
I love her.
I like her.
I do love her.
She a bad bitch. I
No,
do like her.
I don't know if I like her as much as
Mafia
Gant.
behind her.
Yeah, I don't know if I like her as much as I like Gant, but I would put her in A
Yeah,
tier.
no, she's like the boss.
I
boss.
like her as an A.
Change
Okay,
change B to G, girl boss.
Meanwhile,
Yeah, I do love. Oh man, and our first S tier? Could it be?
yeah, it's S tier. No, I
Gumshoe?
Is this
I
S
love
or S
Gumshoe.
plus? Because I added an S plus. I don't know if you have that.
I don't
I
have
have
that.
best. I have a best.
I just have S,
S.
and Gumshoe fits S because
S.
he's a lovable guy that just wants to help people out, and oh god, I love Gumshoe and all the games he's in.
Yeah, the Gumshoe's just
why-
fantastic.
That's why I'm so disappointed when fucking the guy played Dual Destiny. He's like, all right, time for more Gumshoe. Who the fuck are you?
No, it wasn't gonna be Gumshoe. Of course not.
I want a dream. We get Emma back in 6, so.
Yep. But no, I love Gumshoe. He's fun. His theme is good. He's so like naive and wholesome, and his attachment to Edgeworth is so funny. Logic? What's that, Mr. Edgeworth?
You got it, pal.
Yeah. Detective Dick
I'll be
Gumshoe.
looking in the discount. I remember that blooper. I think it was like, I'll be leakier than a discount diaper, and then like fucking Edward's VA just starts laughing.
That's such a
It's really
good.
good.
That's such a good moment.
Gumshoe's great. Like,
Mhm.
Gumshoe really started shining a spot, especially in, like
2.
1-4 and 2.
1-4 onward.
Yeah.
I think
would say
1-3 was like when he saves you from the mafia. That's like really good.
Oh god, yes.
That was pretty good.
That's a great moment, and then he kind of does it again in Trials and Tribulations, actually.
Well, no, yeah, he protects you from Tigray.
Mhm.
But no, like, also he basically becomes like the secretary for a bit in not British, but Turn Out Goodbye. The fucking 2-4.
Yeah. Okay, so it turns out there is not multiple Emmas. So
Yes, they are not. So we just have to take it.
we have to rank every
consideration.
Emma iteration in this one thing.
Yeah.
Honestly, I
Yeah,
think
there is no
Emma's S
separate
tier.
Maya, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Like, I first met Emma through Apollo Justice, and I grew to like her. And then we get her in I went to see the Cherry Bubbles, but it's great seeing her in 6, and she's gone. Oh, I love her.
I do really like Emma. I think she's at her best in Spirit of Justice.
Yes. When she's not like super salty about
Everything.
You know,
She's
Life.
not young and naive.
Yeah.
She is in her practice,
I
and is
think,
helping both Phoenix and Apollo out.
okay, I think if it wasn't for the fact that we're combining all her younger self and her older self, I think I would probably put her older self in S, and then her probably younger self in like A.
Yeah.
I'd say
But I just
yourself
put
in
an A.
B.
Yeah, younger self is fine. I get in 1-5 she's kind of just like Maya 2.0.
Yeah.
And then like
In investigations.
in investigation she does literally nothing, so
she kind of does like nothing.
That's because your young, girl psychic is K.
Yeah, so like, why do we need? I don't know why Emma showed up, but like, it's fine.
Whatever.
I'll
Yeah.
put her
I
in.
rank
I'll
Emma
put her
S
in S.
because I like, yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. Oh God, Frank's so wit. Why do we have to rank him?
Frank saw it. All right, he's kind of like C tier because he's just really funny, and
He
I
is
actually
funny.
like how he
B
was
for
brought back
me.
in Investigations too.
He's
I like
funny.
him back in He's a lot better in Investigations because of that.
Yeah.
Actually, you know what? Hold on, I lie. I'm putting Emma in like S tier.
Mm-hmm.
I lied.
I'm gonna put Saw in C tier.
Yeah, he's I.
Yeah, like whatever. He's like, hi, Dishnet, welcome back. Yes,
Like,
Gumshoe
I
is an
think
S
the
tier.
one thing that sticks out to me with Saw is like the first time you see him, he like definitely like moves his shoulders a lot and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then also there's like the toupee.
Mm-hmm.
He throws, and he also does that in like Investigations too. And it actually is a very he kind of does some he gives my Edward some important testimony. So
Mhm.
there's that too. He's very good. I like
Yeah.
him. I actually genuinely like him.
Oh, it's fine. I don't have a problem with him.
Mhm.
Oh, look at this. Our boy Jakey.
Howdy. Oh my god, you
Nakey
know what I
Jakey.
just remembered?
Yeah.
The one thing that I remember from Jake's LP Super Genius,
Mhm.
when he was doing 1-5, when he learned Jake Marshall's name, he's like, I'm assaulted. How dare he share the same name as me? It was so funny.
I do like that moment.
He refuses to refer to it as his first name and just calls him Marshall.
Mhm.
I don't really like Jake that much.
I don't have an issue with Jake.
I like his design, but like that's
There.
kind of it.
Like, I get it.
He's a
I will
howdy
admit
man.
he's like. I will admit I like the idea that he's obsessed with the case because of like his brother.
Also,
But-
he beat the shit out of Meekins, so you gotta give him that.
Mhm.
But
Also,
I mean,
just
the way that's
sorry. Go ahead.
no, I'm putting him in C. I just
I'm
can't.
putting him in C. I like him better than Cody. I think.
Well, yeah.
Actually, I think I like
Sorry,
Saw
Guilty
it
Love
better
is
than
playing.
Cody.
I'm like rocking out.
Mhm. Also, yeah, don't worry. Fear not, folks. While we will talk about probably the main series, none of those characters have anything to do with Great Ace Attorney, so we won't be
Yeah.
messing with that until it's time.
Mm,
So don't worry there.
yeah.
Yeah. Plenty of time.
Hmm. That being said, when we get to Great Ace Attorney 1, anybody who's not played 2 might want to leave.
Oh,
yeah.
Mhm.
We're just gonna consider all the characters, cause like you know.
We're gonna consider, because a lot of the characters do recur, and it's not worth thinking about it
Yeah.
later. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Judge
Um,
though. All right, best.
Judge goes in S.
He
Plus.
is best for me.
Hmm.
I love Judge.
He's just so funny.
Uchi
So-
is great.
Wait, is there
Haji.
no profile for Santa Judge? Damn. Unfortunate.
Oh, no Saint Nick. Oh, actually, you know what? I'm making a best the best.
Hmm. That's why I'm doing S plus.
Oh man, Oh man, they just played Emma's thief. Man, we were literally just talking about her.
The jurors might be in this actually. I don't know. I didn't look. Well, okay, but like, what's not to love about the Judge? He's fun. He looks cuddly.
Mm-hmm.
He's just a sweet, easily influenced old man.
Okay, I'm looking and it seems like I think
I assume it's only the
Most-
characters who had a mugshot.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, there's some of the characters are jurors technically.
Hmm.
Yeah. Some are jurors, but then they end up giving important info, or like were witnesses and also happen to be jurors too.
I mean, like, sure, the paper star. The Judge kind of like has a
But
type.
I don't
but, like,
see one for Queen. Actually,
Queen Bee? No, she's there.
no,
she's
no,
there.
she's there. She's there. No, I see her.
Mhm.
Anyways, let's get back.
We'll back to one.
Lana.
Yeah.
She's a B for me.
Yeah, we'll put Lana in B, I think.
I like her. I like
Higher
her
B than
design.
Bellhop and Angel,
Very
I think.
simple but very effective. I like it's like her design is like all brown, but she has like a bunch of like metals and stuff to like help like kind of make her not look so boring. And the red scarf too.
I think she's designed to like evoke like some comparisons to Mia, but like not enough to make her like make that her own thing. Like she is her own thing. She's not just a Mia clone or something like that. But like just to establish the similarities between the skies and the phase.
They definitely experimented in college. I'm just saying, okay.
Yeah,
Right.
that's true. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really have much to say about Lana Sky. I like that she is so willing to protect her sister, though.
Okay, now Larry.
Lawrence Buttocks.
Lawrence,
He's like a.
Lawrence Buttocks.
Okay, either low A or like a B.
I'm putting him in high B.
Yeah, he's a B.
I like Larry. Don't get me wrong.
But there's times where it's like, God damn it, Larry.
Also, there's some questionable things he says too. So yeah.
I don't understand Nico B's hatred for Larry.
I like the fact that he does have success down the line, especially with Franzie's fucking book.
Whiplash Splash, whatever it is. I think both of those are the official name.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I like how the anime portrayed him more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cause like they kind of take like he still kind of got some like I guess like he's still kind of like a skirt chaser, but like they kind of taken out most of his like perverted moments and stuff. Like I think the one that stuck out to me, I think it was like just this scene where it's in 1-4 where he surprises Nick and Maya. It's like, haha, I'm here and stuff, and he's like, oh Nick, who's this? Is your girlfriend? And she's like, no, he's my assistant. He's just me like, oh hey, want like a party popper? I'm like, oh wow, that's so different from like how different he kind of acted.
Plus, Larry's actually kind of useful in 1-4's anime adaptation. Not that he's not useful in the actual 1-4, but like him pretending to be Edgeworth is one of the funniest things.
I haven't seen that. That's
Whoops,
really
sorry. Sorry. He always tells the truth in Korea. And no one ever believes
in like the worst roundabout ways.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
that girl is high. Really? She's
really
high up.
Are you high? That girl is really high up in the. Oh lord.
It's so good.
I'm gonna put Larry in high B. I think he's better than Lana.
Yeah.
He's in my high B area.
Lot
of heart. Why was she in investigations?
She's like a.
I'll put her in C. Maybe C or low B.
She's like a low C. She's below fucking Cody.
Is she?
I
think she's at least kind of funny.
I guess she is kind of.
Yeah.
She has her moments in the 2-2.
Yeah, even then, I think people hate her in 2-2 because she does the exact same thing that she did in 1-4. Like just testify against.
Honestly,
she was in investigation. She only cameoed in Investigations 1.
No, she was in 2.
She was in 2.
But she was relevant in 2.
Yeah. Also, her fucking run in 2 was really funny though. Her run.
Oh my god, her running animation. Tim had to replay that on loop.
Really good. It's really good. That is good. She's just a little. She's kind of just.
She's overexcited. She's like, I don't know.
She's just kind of obnoxious a bit. I'll put her.
This is hard for me. I don't know.
Alright. She's like in C.
I put her in C.
I'm gonna put her. I'll put her between Cody and I'll put her above Jake Marshall.
Damn.
Yeah, no, I don't really care that much for Jake Marshall, and at least Lotta has the recurring character bias.
Alright, Manfred von Karma.
Manny V.
He is he's a A.
Yeah, he's A. Either A or like low A. He might be S.
He's just so intimidating.
Yeah, I think he might be S just based on like aesthetic and like how evil he actually is.
Presentation and that alone.
Presentation makes the difference for some of these characters, by the way, guys.
Clothes make the man, as they say, you know.
His presence is known when you first are in courts, and when you're doing the first.
You press that first thing. It's objection.
Exactly.
It sounds like that's like in a barrel.
And also, don't forget, we see more of his deceptiveness in
in Investigations, yes.
Investigations 2, 3, which is which makes it even more. It's like, dear God.
Yeah, just absolutely fantastic character. Like, not a great person, but as a character, very well written. How evil do you have to be to to do what you did and then take their son under your wing just to frame them for something later?
And then essentially just like groom him to be your successor.
Yeah, because despite the dead,
and also and then like give your fucking granddaughter like competitive issues, you know, like inferiority complex. It's
that's his daughter.
Oh right.
Yeah.
I keep forgetting.
It's that he's 65 and she's 17.
Yes.
Yeah.
Man, I'm shocked he was able to get his wife pregnant. So yeah.
I'm shocked that he was. Yeah, you know what? You're right.
Shocked he was married at all.
Yeah.
On karma. Fuck.
He had 2 kids actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Because he mentions having he mentions having a granddaughter, but Franziska's not old enough for that. So.
Yeah.
Also, they don't mention that kid at all. So.
Yeah. When did he have the time to date? Yeah, he's got 2 children, Blue.
What the hell is the second child or the other child doing?
I have no clue.
What do you mean? What did you say?
What is the other one doing then? Because all we know about is Franziska.
Yeah, no, I'm sure that she didn't become alert. She hightailed it out of there.
Disowned, I guess.
I don't know.
I don't know. Probably.
All right. I'm putting this guy in.
Roseburg.
Oh lord.
He's I.
Yeah, I'm gonna put him in like D.
I'm putting him in E.
D for the hemorrhoids.
God.
He's like C. He's below Cody. He's like the bottom.
You're being nice to Marvin. I'm being rude most.
Yeah.
I'm being the rudest to him.
I don't care about Marvin.
Dev.
Like all he did was all his entire accomplishment in the series is like screwing over Maya.
I'll probably rearrange it.
But here's the thing. Here's what I'm thinking about this right now. I'm pretty sure when Mia told Maya to go like Grossberg's law office, it wasn't for Grossberg. That was back when like Diego was still around, probably.
It's a different time. Yeah, I get it. Oh, but yeah, I don't care much about. He sold out Misty and screwed over Maya. Yep.
Oh yeah, that's true. Hold on. All right,
That's why he's in D.
You know what? Do you know what?
Hold on.
E.
Yeah.
I forgot about the Misty thing. All the pain and suffering this man caused. Sure, he was being blackmailed, but like whatever.
How do I spell hemorrhoids again? I'm putting him in that tier. All right.
Hemorrhoids.
Thank you. I have to respell it now.
It's like hem or voids.
Oh, that's such a obnoxiously long name.
Yeah.
Oh man, it doesn't fit.
No, that's okay.
I was hoping it wasn't gonna break lines.
We had disappointing G in the last one. We can have hemorrhoids or whatever.
It's hemorrho, because it cuts off.
Hemorrhoids.
Yeah, hemorrho. All right, so he's in the hemorrhoids tier.
Yep.
So we'll put him there.
Yeah, no, I think I'm putting him in E. Maya Fey. Now that's an S+ right there if I've ever seen one.
Yes.
Move over, Gumshoe.
S.
I'm putting her in S+. I love her. And not get enough of Maya.
She's great, but I don't know.
That being said, she's not my favorite assistant, but we'll get there.
I was like, she is not my favorite assistant. We'll get to my favorite assistant down the line.
Yeah. That being said, she's still a fantastic character.
She's
and
so
I am ordering them within the tiers this time while I'm doing it.
Fine, what are you talking about? I see Father Christmas.
He's there? I didn't see him.
It's between John and Cosma.
Oh.
For some reason, like, Cosmo's way down there, not like here. Oh wait,
it's alphabetical. Relax. We'll get there when we get there.
Okay.
I don't want to talk about Great Ace right now. Although my jam is on the Great Cross-Examination, Allegro.
I got Guilty Love ringtone, so there's that. Mia!
Oh, Mia time. Mia's S.
She's an S. Like, honestly, for a reoccurring character, I really like her. For being dead.
Oh. Yeah, for a dead girl, she is pretty cool.
Yeah. Like, she basically teaches Phoenix all that he knows. Essentially, gives him advice when needed to. Even though she's like, all right, I'll leave this up to you. Even though her sister's like not about to like die and shit. So yeah, he still leaves it up to him.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I enjoy, I really love Mia. Maya, what's up, Rabbit? In the meantime, though, Meekin.
Hemorrhoids.
You love 2, 2, and 3, 5. Yeah, those are great cases. I love them too.
Actually, I don't know. Should I put him an E or should I just put him an F with April May?
No, I don't. As much as I'm giving Meekin shit, he's honestly not that bad.
He's not bad. Actually, I'll put him F. He's not like gross.
Put him in F?
F? I was gonna put him in D.
I was about putting him in D.
Rosie's like, Meekin's ain't that bad. I'll put him in F.
I just don't like
He does his
oh my god,
best.
what's it called? The thing he fucking like blurs out and
His
it's like
megaphone?
whiny.
Yeah,
His megaphone. It hurts my ears.
That's fair,
So,
but like Meekin's tries his best.
he tries his best, but when he tries his best, it hurts my ears too. So no, thank you.
That's fair, you know.
Actually, fine. I'll give him an E. One rank up, he moves from hemorrhoids to F to E, which is not much because there's nobody in
No,
like F.
but, like, I'm just laughing about the fact that we're like Meekin's is not that bad, and you're like, yeah, he's not. I'm gonna put him in F. Oh Lord.
All right, Miles. All right.
Miles Edgeworth. Okay,
That's-
honestly, A.
Best.
Really?
Yeah,
Really?
Damn.
I like Edgeworth.
Okay.
Okay, maybe he's like low. Maybe
Is it just because he's not hot?
no. Okay, well he's not hot.
He's a dork, and that's why I love him.
He's kind of okay. Let's think about this. Like
He's a dork that tries to hide it, but
he is a dork that tries to pretend to be all like classy and shit, and I'm like, okay.
he's a fucking dork.
Mhm.
Like, shoutouts to again in
Steel
Spirit
Samurai.
Justice when he finds out about the Plume Punisher.
No, he's so
yeah,
mad.
Oh my god,
He's
he gets
so
mad.
mad.
This is
about-
a bootleg. This is a rip-off.
This
How
is-
dare they?
I love like this guy, middle-aged man, fancy, sophisticated man, raving about how bad a child show is in fucking
A
foreign
fucking.
country.
He's like, man, this is a bootleg. This is a ripped off.
You know, I will. Okay,
Oh.
so like, here's the thing with like Edgeworth. Like, I love him to death, but Final Case Edgeworth appearance is getting so old as a concept.
Oh yeah.
They
I
gotta
guess-
move on.
True.
Can't
Here's the
keep bringing him back.
Edward's not a prosecutor, but he's just there as an ally, though.
Yeah, he is just there as an ally, but they can only do that so much. It stops being
Uh-huh.
surprising and exciting after the third time.
Mhm.
I'll put
Yeah,
him.
he's
You
in
know what?
that, like-
Actually, no, he is A. I like him almost as much as Mia.
He's like, all right, in Justice for All, in Trials of Tribulation, Dual Destinies, and then Spirit of Justice. Which I mean, his only important role is just like, hey, I got us the private jet,
Mhm.
and that's
I
it.
was in Trials and
I'm
Tribulations.
I'm kind of just like, wait, why are you even here?
Mhm.
I was in Trials and Tribulations you play as him, which is the cool part about that.
That would have been something else.
Investigations, okay, that one I'm like, I like in like his first game's kind of but like his second game though, I really like him in the second game just because like he has to deal with the question of do I want to follow down my father's path and be a defense attorney? Should I stay the path that I've always been to and
Mhm.
be a
I
prosecutor?
like that. I do
And
like that.
I like that. Honestly, the peak for me was him giving up his prosecutor's badge because he's like, this thing's holding me back.
Mhm.
Yeah, like he's like, I'm not gonna become a prosecutor. I'm like,
At least it didn't make
oh.
an appearance in Grand Ace Attorney.
That's so funny.
Just like 10
Who are
years,
you?
like 100 years later. Like, oh
I
my
have
god,
time
Miles
travel.
Edgeworth is born.
I have time traveled, motherfuckers.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right,
Yeah,
Missile.
he's S. Missile best.
S plus.
Best.
I don't know where in S plus to put him though. I guess the best.
I put him in S. It's not
I'm
the
sorry.
best.
I have to put Missile above Wagahai and Toby because he's the original Puppo.
Mhm.
Original OG Doggo. I'm sorry, okay.
I'm putting him in S.
Also, he's so good he was in Ghost Trick too, so you know,
Mhm.
Never played Ghost Trick.
it's good.
Well, I do love Missile. Oh boy, Penny.
Penny! Who?
Penny. I don't think
Actually,
Penny's
yeah,
that forgettable.
No, she's
I
kind
put
of
her
cute
in
design.
B.
I put her in B, yeah. I like her better than
put her-
Angel Star and
I put her
Bellboy.
in like high C. Phoenix! Okay, best. Sorry.
Yeah, Phoenix has to go up there.
Yeah.
Do I like him more
I
than
think-
Maya? I don't know.
I like him more, Maya. I think just because you're just in his shoes pretty much
Mhm.
all the
Big-
time.
And I love how he acts in core. He's a big dork in core, and that's amazing.
He flounders, but when you need him the most, he pulls through.
Yeah.
So.
Brabbit, Missile the dog is from 1-4.
Yes. 1-4. Yeah, he's in 1-4. I think he shows up.
You never need to
Yeah,
have him, and I think he's also
No.
in he's also in Investigations 2, Case 2.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, because they bring him to the animal.
But
like,
in
prison.
1-4, you never need Missile.
You don't really need him.
Because all you need is if you have him, because you have to pick one of Gumshoe's secret weapons, and if you have him, you get some interesting dialogue.
Yeah.
But otherwise, there's not much that goes on. Pretty minor character. Polly.
S.
Yeah, S.
I
Yeah.
gotta put all the animals in S.
I'll put Polly in S plus.
I'm sorry, I gotta put Waga high above Polly because cat. Because
Mhm.
Kite.
The fact that you have Wagatai ranked is gonna cause you confusion.
No, it's fine.
I don't know what else to say about Polly. Don't forget
Toby
DL6.
I already had Toby ranked too, so you know.
Yeah.
Because it saved my thing. Okay, Mr. fucking Red White. He's
Ugh,
hemorrhoid. Alright, he and Mr. Grossberg can be lovers.
Actually,
Okay,
these two are F. Actually, I hate Red White so much.
He's got a punchable face, and that's just it for him.
You're secretly lovers.
We love Wagahai, Dishnet. Wagahai stands all the way. He's so cute. I hate Red White. What an asshole. Dick. Did the worst things.
Literally killed Mia. So.
Yeah.
Another F tier fucker.
Oh, I hate Salmonella too. Just get him out of my sight.
Alright.
F, easily F.
I like Red White more than him.
Yeah, Red White's got a punchable face at least.
Yeah. He's just
And
sweaty
honestly,
and gross.
honestly,
It's just sweaty and gross.
I do like his shocked or reacting face. It's the only good thing I like about Red White. That
Yeah,
other
he
than
just-
that, he's
Oh, what's your name?
What's your name?
Wendy.
Wendy is
Why-
not as bad as people think she
She's-
is.
I like her. She's funny. She's definitely gonna be me. I'm definitely gonna be her.
Yeah.
I'm putting her in S tier, high S tier, or
She's
high
like
C,
a
high C
she's like
tier.
a-
I mean,
she's like a high B for me.
High
Maybe
B. I put her low B.
We'll see.
I like her. I like her less than Penny.
Yeah.
high C.
Man is going by significantly faster than
Because we don't have a million things to discuss.
I know, right?
Well, we
It's
say
just-
that, but
it's just so funny.
but
This
we're
has-
still
this
only
has,
on
like-
game 1.
This has more stuff to less to talk about.
Yeah,
Really.
you say it's going quick, but we're also still on game 1.
Oh yeah, it's true.
Almost done though.
Almost done. We got a few more characters, then we're on to.
Yeah,
two.
we literally got 3 more characters.
Yeah.
Will.
A or
I like-
S? I don't know.
I blame S. I love Will.
I do love Will Powers. He's so sweet.
I like him. I just think he should. I think for me, he just hasn't appeared enough for me to be like, this is my favorite. But
I don't think he's my
So
favorite.
I'll put him. I'll put him in B.
Remember that I have an
don't
S
say
plus though, so when I say I'm putting him in S, that's still not the
I
best.
think we all have an S plus
Yeah.
now.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, my best is just basically S plus. Maybe I should just rename my F tier to hemorrhoids. Cause nobody's an F right now. We'll see. Winston Payne. Okay,
He's a
I
D.
actually
I enjoy Winston Payne.
I enjoy him. He's funny. I'll put him
D.
middle of C. He's
I'll put
more
him-
enjoyable than Lada.
I'll put
Yeah.
him in B.
I'll
low
put
B.
him. I'll put him above Lada.
No, my hair, my beautiful hair. No.
I love him.
Objection.
I like
This
him
is
better than
high
Gaspin,
mystery.
actually.
Gaspin's
Also,
just
doesn't he
annoying.
actually have a wife and kids? He
Yeah.
has like a wife and daughter, so he's clearly doing better than like his
Why?
brother. So.
If you met my wife, for example, you'd be truly shocked. I met your wife once. It was truly, truly shocking.
She's like,
No.
damn, Winston got himself a bombshell of a wife.
No, Blue, Winston is the one from the original trilogy and Apollo
Yeah.
Justice.
The one in SOJ is Gaspin Payne. That's his brother. Gaspin was also in Dual Destinies. So, we'll talk about him later, much later.
Oh god, complications in the proceedings just started playing now we're talking about Uncle.
Oh my
Or
god.
Yanni Yogi, I guess.
I feel bad for Yanni. But
I do feel bad for Yanni, but that's not going to make me like him more.
He's
Yeah.
just a D.
I will put him in C.
He's like a C. I liked his backstory enough. It was compelling enough.
Yeah,
for me.
I like him better than Jake, I guess.
I like him better than Lotto. Actually, I like him better than Lotto.
Actually, you know what? You're right. 'Cause at least the uncle persona is funny.
Uncle, you finally decided to inherit the noodle shop.
The wet noodle.
The wet noodle.
Hey, wait, wet noodle? Oh, what's it like the wet soba?
Wet soba, wet soba, wet soba.
Wet soba. Wet soba. Okay, here he comes.
Oh boy.
We're on Justice for All.
Yeah, JFA time.
Acro.
I
I genuinely like him.
Acro's an idiot.
Yeah. It's true.
But like, here's the thing. Like, okay, spoilers for Justice for All.
I felt bad for him.
Let me just start real quick. JFA characters. There we go. You know, Acro's not smart. I'm going to. His entire thing is like, I'm going to kill the daughter of the man who raised me. Like, okay, what kind of plan is that?
Without even, well, here's the thing. It wasn't. So it wasn't to him.
Mm-hmm.
It was to her, which is even worse, honestly, because he was still planning to kill her.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, he didn't mean to kill him. He just
So
meant.
either way, Bats or Acro's, what the fuck, man?
Yeah, Acro's not smart. I'm actually gonna put him in like D tier.
He's a
Below
E.
below Meekins, actually.
He's an E. He's an E on me.
I mean, I have to give him guts because he literally brought the murder weapon with him. And he's like, all right, I'm gonna see if nobody can notice I brought it in. So,
Yeah. Adrian Andrews.
I'm gonna put him in like C.
Who, Acro?
Yeah, I'll put him in
Okay.
C.
I was like, you're putting Adrian C?
I was like,
No.
I'm putting her A.
No, I gotta put her in A.
Yeah, no, Adrian's an A.
Above
Adrian. Yeah, above Damon,
Yeah.
for sure.
Adrian
Yeah.
Andrews. A. There you go.
Samson glasses.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. For like one entire case, she has so much depth to her.
Mm-hmm. My favorite thing, one of my favorite moments is that in the entirety of Case 4 of Justice for All, Tim doesn't refer to as Adrian Andrews as Samus once. But when Lisa Basil comes on the screen for the first time, it's like, well, I didn't know Samus was in this game. Like, what?
I know. It's like, what? It's like, it was so funny.
This is so funny.
Like, literally everyone I've seen play through it blind, she's like, oh my god, it's Samus.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because, you know, looks.
Also, are you ready for a chip opening ASMR bag?
Yeah.
Hold on.
Give me that sweet ASMR.
Ooh, yeah, those are like crinkles.
This next guy goes in F,
Yeah.
right?
Lowest of the low, actually. He's my least favorite character so far.
He's hemorrhoids. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Dang, nobody's gonna be an F at this point.
I know where you're putting this next one at.
Yeah, well, we'll get there. I just
Colin.
I absolutely hate Ben Woodman. And Trillo by association. Is Trillo his own sprite? Okay, so like Trillo's also lumped in with him.
Please just remove the wood from Ben. Okay?
Yeah.
He doesn't deserve any, so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
well, we all know where this is going.
I hate the fact that I share a name with this douchebag.
Oh, whatever. We all share names with terrible people.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, I Ben Woodman sucks. Trillo sucks. But Franziska, there we go. There we go.
She is an S. She do be.
Oh, she is an S+ for me. We all know that, though. It's not any surprise. Yeah, I don't know what to say. She's just fun. Takes a little while to warm up to her, but
I like her. She's really fun. I think
mhm.
I think for me, I kind of relate to her story of like never being able to live up to
Oh,
your
me
parents'
too.
expectations and stuff. So yeah, it's like
Me too, I feel that. I do really resonate with Franziska. That's one of the reasons I like her so much. Reese really likes Franziska, actually. Franziska's her favorite as well.
Honestly, just that one scene at the credits made me really like her a lot
Yeah.
more. And the more I rewatch her, the more I like her a lot more. So
one of the moments.
Also, blooper. Oh, sorry. Continue.
One of the moments that really makes a lot of people like Franziska is actually in Investigations too. When you have to accept, when she says you have to accept the sins of your father or something like that. Some people have to be able to accept it.
I was wondering about like all that stuff before. And question: has she ever given the evidence that like?
No, she didn't.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
So she's been only on that calling card all this time.
I don't think she brought it because I don't think she realized it. Actually, no, because she thought she was gonna meet Phoenix. I don't understand why.
Wait, which one? Sorry.
The evidence, the little card with Nick's face drawn on it.
Yeah, the Shelley the Killer card. That Maya was like, I could have sworn I had it.
Honestly, I just in my head, I just assumed she brought it with her when she maybe visits Nick in the hospital. So. Ooh, also that blooper in like Trials and Tribulation where she's like, "Fuck off." That was really good. I wish they kept that. That should have been the actual episode.
Oh my god. Yeah. Love her. Now who we don't love is this freaking
Alright, hemorrhoids.
F.
Dude, nobody's gonna be in my F tier. Might as well just get rid of it.
Why do you have it at this point? Like,
your hemorrhoids is your F tier.
Oh yeah, you're right. Hold on, I will get rid of it. That's like 5 people there, so yeah.
I have 5 people in there as well.
I have 5 people as well. I think it's all 5 people we just said.
No, and it's not the same 5 people though, because Rosie has Marvin Grossberg in hers.
It's why you and me have the same F people then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about Hottie that much.
Yeah, let's just pretend he doesn't exist.
Yeah. Okay.
Meanwhile,
Eni. I like Eni actually.
Fun.
Eni's really fun. I love her design. I would put her in either low A or high B.
Totally?
Like totally. Yeah, I'll put her in low A.
I think she's in the middle for me. Actually, no. Right next to Will.
What really? I guess it makes sense because, like, well, why do we have to rank Mimi? But we'll get there when we get there. Maggie.
Well, I mean...
Sorry, go ahead.
Please. B for me.
What are you gonna say, Flargrah? I'm sorry.
We can put them both in the same area.
We can put them next to each other.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that.
The problem is, like, that means I rank Mimi just as high, so it's like complicated.
But honestly, I just feel more bad for her than anything because she was overworked.
I feel bad for both of them.
Do feel bad for them. The doctor deserved it, so you know what? Whatever.
Although I will say the worst decision she ever did was not let her sister drive the car.
Yeah.
Well, it was a European car, so that's maybe why she wasn't.
Well, it's literally because she didn't want, like, her sister driving her brand new car, which I can understand, but, like, it was just a sad situation. It was a very poor decision
because she was so overworked, she literally fell asleep. Yeah, you're sad.
Eni is fantastic, and you know what, Maggie, I'll put just below. No, I'll put it above. I'll put her above Larry. When did I grab Jake Marshall? What happened? Sorry, I didn't mean to drop you off there, Maggie. I'll put her in high B. I think I like her better than Lana. Do I like her more than Larry? Yeah, I do.
Accidentally muted my OBS mic for, like, thankfully it was only for 5 minutes, not for 20.
Well, Rosie chat, if you want to hear what Rosie had to say.
It's here!
Yeah, it's still here. Yeah. So we're all good.
God, it's like with fucking Superstar. I was muted for like 20 minutes. And I was like, I hate this. Ooh.
Yeah. Alright, yeah, I put Maggie in high B. I don't know about y'all.
Yeah, we're like middle.
Lana should be higher.
On guard though.
How you doing, Big Bald Jason? Good to welcome aboard.
Madangar.
I like him as a villain.
I do like him as a villain.
He's an A for me.
Yeah, I love him, but I also hate him. You know, it's like. But I think as a villain, he's top tier. His deception is really good, and he's like so evil. I'll put him. I don't like him as much as Eni, I think.
He literally fooled
Everyone.
Nick up until his reveal. Yeah.
I mean, Nick had his doubts, but the Magatama really did not help.
Yeah, well, because it's true. Matt really, legitimately did not kill Juan Carita.
Yep. So I mean, it made sense. Oh boy, Max Galactica.
He's okay. I like him.
Yeah, I like.
Green. Billy Bob Johnson.
Billy Bob Johns, baby.
He's got 3 first names, Nick.
I'm Billy Bob Jones.
Oh lord.
Also, I talked this in the case ranking stream, but like, I like his character because like he comes from a good place of like wanting everyone to like put their best foot out when it comes to performing, but like he comes off as like kind of like
he comes off as an arrogant bastard.
I'll put him in C. I'll put him in C as well. Yeah, I think I'll put him like between Jake and Lada.
So
I don't know what to do about Mimi Miney, honestly.
I put them both together.
Yeah, but that would mean putting them both in A tier for me.
I'll put her in like. She's like C tier.
Honestly, I think I like the Eni persona better than Mimi. Yeah, kind of neutral. I'll put her in like... You know what? I'll put her in like low B, I think. Because I do legitimately feel bad for her. But she doesn't have much appeal otherwise. So, I'll put her... No, not in F tier. Stupid. I'll put her below... I'll put her above Bellboy.
Yeah.
Mo! I do like Mo. I actually like Mo.
I like Mo. I'll put him in C, which is like, I notice I tend to have very neutral opinions on
I'll put him in B.
Characters.
Yeah, I'll put him in B, I think.
Mid B.
You know what? I will put... Actually, I choose...
Well, I put him above Wendy Oldbag in like B.
I'm gonna put Mimi above Max Galactica in C. And I'm gonna put Mo in B above Oldbag. Actually, no. Below Oldbag, above Bellboy. I don't know. I don't really have much to say on Mo. I think he's legitimately funny, and I don't think he's as dumb as people make him out to be. He's just a little childish.
Yeah,
and he was telling the truth.
And also, he made the decision to bring Regina, which is probably the best thing he's done.
Yeah.
Like, he legitimately cares about everybody there, including Regina. Which I think is nice. Oh, Morgan Freeman! What am I gonna do with Morgan Freeman? I don't know, actually. I love her as a villain.
I know! But she's such a cunt.
I know. We do. What do we do? What are you gonna do, Flargrah?
I'll put her in like D, I guess.
D? I was actually thinking the opposite. I was gonna put her in like low A. But like, she's really awful.
Like, I like her, but my enjoyment of her does not override my intense hatred for her.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, she's a really bad human being. And even though like truly evil human beings can make it up the ranks, I mean, like, Morgan's just devious and bad.
Kitty, what is it?
Yeah, I'll put her in like C, I think. I'll put her above like
C.
I'll put her above Yanni Yogi, I think, maybe.
She's above, yeah. Yanni and Wendy. Shower is so jaw-droppingly large.
Strawberry desserts. Kitty, what is it? Kitty is on my chair and she jumped off.
Mm-hmm.
Pearl!
I like Pearl.
She's S.
Yeah, she's S. I don't know if she's S+, but she's S.
Yeah, she's S.
But-
Sorry,
she's with-
Fanny.
She's with the rest of the phase. S.
I put Maya in S+, but like...
I have all the phase together except for Morgan. Like all the good phase that is.
Mm-hmm. We'll get to Terry. Don't worry. Oh, Regina! I like Regina, actually.
Good faith in the phase.
Mhm.
You're not gonna like me when I put this. D.
That's fine. You don't... We've talked about Regina before. It's fine.
I'm mixed. I'm mixed on her.
She's still an idiot, honestly.
Yeah,
and I
she's
know
not smart, but
her-
she's sheltered.
It's
so...
not her fault, but at the same time, it's just
not
like,
her fault.
I still say it's her fault for the fucking bad issue.
Yeah, that was her fault, but like...
That was her fault.
That was.
I mean,
fucking
what happened? You said all... What happened? Bat was the dumb one there, honestly.
Both of them are dumb. How about that?
Yeah.
Like, Regina had no reason to believe that the peppered scarf would cause that problem. Like, it was an innocent prank. Like, Bat's the one who went into the lion's mouth, which Regina had, in fairness, done several times, but she was trained to do it, and so was the lion. I don't know, I'll put her above Mo. Not actually below Mo, but above Bellboy.
I put her high D.
I don't know if I would consider Adrusaurus sheltered, honestly. Oh boy, Richard.
No, I wouldn't say Adri's like sheltered. Just more. She just has a lot of good, like, faith in people.
Mm-hmm. Which is fine.
Which is different from being sheltered. So
Mhm.
you know.
Hey, this guy's a fucking. Ooh,
But Adri is a friend. I love her dearly.
that's E. It's whatever.
Richard Wellington? Oh lord, yeah, but go spend time with Grossberg, honey.
Yeah. He's like D or E for me, only because of the bananas thing.
Yeah, the thing that's keeping him out of F is the banana tier thing.
Yeah. Okay, I'll put him in D. Sorry, Meekins, you're still in E.
I cannot stand this man, and like, I also cannot stand 2-1, so like, whatever. It makes sense that they would be pretty similarly low. Shelly the Killer, though.
I'm a humble ice cream salesman.
Yes.
S for Shelly.
S for
Let's
Shelly.
go.
I'll put him
Yeah.
Above Manfred and Will. Mm-hmm. Shelly's a fantastically written character.
I love Shelly.
The fact that they wrote an assassin character and yet somehow he's still like not even close to being the
Honorable
worst
as
person in this
fuck.
case.
Yeah.
And in fact, he's one of the better people in this case. It's just incredible.
He's better in
Right.
both.
Sorry.
He's better in both games with, Just for All and
Mm-hmm.
Investigation 2.
Yes, animated through inanimate objects. We love it. Yeah, no, Blue. Don't get me wrong. I respect your opinion. I just don't. I don't know what it is. Well, I talked about it in my case rankings, but like, I don't know. 2-1 is just really contrived and like not that fun to play. I don't know. He did release Maya, so he's a man of his word. That's true, Brabbit. Mm-hmm. Oh God. No, I hate this guy. How much do I hate him, though? What do you guys think about Dr. Gray?
He's like either hemorrhoids or like
Fuck
E.
you.
I'm putting him above. I'll put him above April May and Red White, but he's still an F tier.
No, he's between the two.
He's
fuck.
only. No. All right. He's
He has
above Stamina.
He has no redeeming qualities.
Like, he literally goes to Phoenix just because. Oh, you know Maya Faye, right? You got connections, right? And he literally does it just so he can channel a dead spirit to have her sign a paper saying that it wasn't his fault
Mm-hmm.
that the whole malpractice thing happened. And I'm like, oh my god, how conceited you have to fucking be to do that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
And
don't.
he also overworked her to that too.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess the malpractice was really Mimi's fault. That's the thing.
That's true, but like,
How about this? Everyone sucks here. Gray's just an unforgiving prick.
Yeah.
we can't assume that Gray actually gave her any time off, so.
I'm not saying Gray's in the right, but like when it comes down to it,
Both are at fault,
yeah.
but like, I feel like Gray was more at fault because if he didn't overwork her, then you know.
That was a sad case. Fantastic case, but sad
Very
case.
Good.
Yeah.
All right, let's go Dual Destiny.
Am I gonna buy Alfred's album? Maybe. I haven't really. Honestly, I forgot the thing. So I can't answer that right now. Bikini. Bikini.
Honestly,
A.
A tier, A or S.
Yeah.
A.
No, not B. Oh my god, mouse.
B for bikini.
I'll put her above D, honestly. D Vasquez, I mean.
Oh,
I
okay.
figure what you mean. I figure what you meant.
Yeah, I'll put her above D Vasquez.
I love her. She's so funny.
She's fun. Like she means well. She only really saw she's satisfying what she saw.
Yeah.
Here's another one who's telling the truth, and like she really feels bad about everything that happened.
And she even like she like raised Iris too.
Yeah.
As like a surrogate mother. So there's that.
She's actually really more so a mother figure to Iris.
And she basically gives you all the important information about like the Fae clan.
Yes, absolutely. You know what I realized? Look at where Elise Donham is in this list. They didn't name her Elise Donham. But anyway. Dahlia Hawthorne.
Oh!
I love Dahlia, actually. She's a bitch.
Honestly,
but like, I love her.
easy S tier for me. She is
Very
such a
S
bitch.
tier. I'll put her above.
Honestly,
I like her better than Emma. In writing.
I'm putting her S plus tier just because of how much of a villain she is.
Yeah, she's a fantastic
I love
villain.
her.
Fantastic end villain for the trilogy.
Yeah, she's like on the top of my S tier, which I feel like should be illegal, but oh well.
I put her in middle S tier. She's above Shelley, below Emma.
Fair.
Desiree Delight, though.
I love her.
I do love her.
She's like B or A. No,
I'll put her.
A,
I think she's an A as well. I'll put her above.
Desiree?
Yeah, Desi Delight. Yeah.
Put her a low A.
Like, damn,
I will
what
put
a
her
bomb.
above. I'll put her above Vasquez. Oh god, I just love Desi Delight. She's so fun, and like I don't know, it's so funny how completely opposite she is to Ron.
But like, they still care for each other.
And
then even though she's like, so are you gonna leave him? It's like, why would I leave such a wonderful man? Like, ah.
Oh yeah, I love her. Love her. Furio Tigre.
I really like him. He's B for me. He's so funny.
He is really funny. I think he's high B or low A.
I'm sorry, Will.
He's B for me.
Zinni Oop. Yeah, of course I mean Zinni Oop.
Zinni Oop. Zinni Oop. And I Oop.
I'll put him below Engard. Where did I move him? There he is. I'll put him below Engard just because of how funny he is. Hey, Recipe for Turnabout is honestly a hilarious case.
It's actually really funny, except for maybe the music.
If Recipe took itself seriously, it would be one of the worst cases, in my opinion. But the fact that it absolutely knows what it is and is just trying to be as ridiculous as possible really helps it. Oh, Godot. Godot is complicated. I don't hate Godot.
A or S tier for him.
I'm putting him in A. I just don't know where in A.
A or S for me.
Mid A.
Who am I?
Actually, top A.
Yeah, I don't know. He's probably better than Adrian Andrews.
I put him above. Like, he's my top in the A.
Yeah, he's right number one in A tier for me. But...
Like, he's very real, I think.
Yeah, he is very real.
And like, honestly, a lot of his traits that he's pretty well known for are honestly his like biggest downfalls. Like,
He's kind of a
arrogant,
chauvinist. He's
he's chauvinistic, very traditional
yeah.
in like gender roles and stuff, which is
Which
like.
I mean, like it's what you know. It's what you know. But like, I don't know. I would like to rank Edo higher, but he's flawed, and I appreciate that it's understood very well that he's flawed, and people still love him, and I still like him. Don't get me wrong. But for me, the flaws are kind of difficult to overlook. Even music aside.
Oh, S+.
Oh, Iris? Yeah, absolutely. Love Iris.
Iris is a treat. I'm gonna be.
She's an A for me, honestly. I still like her.
Fair.
I like Iris.
Iris is one of my favorites. I don't know if I like her more than Mia. Iris did deserve better, but you know what? Out of everything that she could have had, she got the best outcome that was possible. Yeah. But she still deserves better. I would like to point out that we're on Trials and Tribulations, and yet we've been doing this for like an hour.
Haha.
Yeah, I think I'll put Iris in. I'll put her above Pearl in S, I think. But I don't think I'll put her in S+ after all. Oh, Jean. I like Jean, actually.
He's okay in my book. He's like
alright. He's like a C for me.
I'll put him in high. I'll put him in low A, I think, or no, high B. High B.
I'm putting him high C.
I like him better than Penny Nichols.
He's like high C for me.
Man, putting Penny in like mid B is like the absolute perfect place to have put her.
No, it should be mid C.
I guess, but the S+ kind of makes it balance out.
Okay, fair.
Like if I didn't have S+, everything else would have to get moved down. But yeah, I don't know. Jean is funny. But like, I don't know. He is mid B, in my opinion. Maple Judge.
I kind of want to put him in best next to his brother.
Yeah, I like Maple Judge.
Funny.
He is very funny. I don't know. I think I'll put him in. I'll put him next to his brother. Actually, I'll put him below the animals.
Who is this hoser, eh?
Who's this hoser, eh?
Who's this hoser, eh?
The hoser. I'll never forget how Tim thought this guy looked like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
What?
Yeah, I'm telling you, that's what he thought. And then immediately he's like, that doesn't look anything like Arnold. What am I saying? A hoser? I don't really. It's a Canadian thing. That's all I know. Yeah, I love Canadian Judge. The judges are pretty great, honestly, just throughout. Oh boy, Lisa Basil. Middle of the road?
She doesn't really do much.
She's not low C. She's helpful. She's helpful enough.
Okay. Yeah.
I do like her reactions too when you're doing the sidewalks with her.
Yeah.
Look at me! I actually do kind of like him.
S tier.
I don't think he's S tier, but I'll put him in like mid A.
He's like B. I think B or.
I put him in low S
tier.
tier.
Shit, you know what? He's. Oh above. Shit! Thank you, Brabbit, for catching that. We've been in TNT for a while.
TNT has a lot of characters.
Yeah, no, it does. We're almost
he's like
done.
high B for me. Sorry, Wendy.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll put Luke at me in. I'll put him above Penny in. Penny's kind of like my baseline, honestly. But like, I think I'll put him below Furio Tigre in A. What do you guys think about Elise Donim?
I like her enough.
I love her.
She's great.
Yeah, I think I'll put her in S. I'm just not sure where in S.
I think maybe low A or mid A.
I think she's low S. I'll put her below Will Powers, I think. She's a great character.
Oh, what row? So, question: have you guys hit the second row for a character for a line yet?
No.
Yeah. Oh, I've hit that for C a while ago.
I did not hit that.
I did that for S.
This is why we have an S+ tier.
Well, yeah, but I'm really selecting my Fs plus.
Mm-hmm. Oh man. Yeah, no, Luke at me no, not Luke at me. At least Donum I think belongs where I put her in like low S tier because she's great, but like there are characters that had more screen time and therefore more to work with. Oh man, Ron Delight.
I actually do like him.
I love Ron. I don't like him as much as Desi, but I like him close enough that I can put them right next to each other.
Yeah.
He's like next to like look at me, for me. I really like his
like,
design.
I still love like, imagine just like screaming out, "Please die!
Please die!" So why did you hide the body in the safe anyway? Because it wouldn't fit in a drawer.
Did you do it?
Yes. Wait, no, sorry, no. It's so funny. I love that. Harry Falls. He makes an impact. You really do feel bad for Terry.
Yeah, he does. On the floor of the courtroom.
Shut up.
I think maybe a D.
Sorry.
No,
I think
okay.
a D for me. Sorry, Terry.
I'll put him in like high, low, mid B, I think. No, low B. Put him above the bellboy.
I feel a little bit more bad for him than Morgan, so I'll put him above Morgan.
I really do feel bad. I mean, like he was the scapegoat, so like you feel bad. Victor Kudo. Oh lord. I think Victor Kudo is honestly one of the funniest characters, but like, funny doesn't win the day all the time.
I put him in high C, low B.
I will put him in high B. I think I like him better than Larry. No, I don't. I like him better than John. I'll put him next to John.
He's like a D for me, I guess.
Yeah. I just crossed over into the second line of a B tier. Yeah, no, I don't really have much to say on Victor. He's funny, and I really liked that scene with Mia.
Okay, that was pretty good.
Oh, God.
Alright, you know what? Hold on, I'll put him above Morgan then.
You've got an infinite ammo code for that box of seeds. It's a great line. Oh man, Viola.
I enjoy her.
Yeah, she's fine.
I like her design.
I like her design. I think she's a fascinating character. I wish she had more backstory.
Yeah.
I
like the whole thing that she was part of a mafia. That's my favorite.
Yeah, the one good thing about case Investigations 1, Case 3 is that Tender Lender comes up and like you find out that Viola's running the place now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Viola's an A. I like a low A.
Yeah, I'll put her in low A. I like her better than Luke.
Don't want you, Valiant. Go away.
That's the thing. Sometimes you just click the wrong character, and then you lose them. Does that ever happen to you? When I was ranking all of the Pokemon
not for me.
Up to Gen 4, I literally lost Prinplup and could not find him for the entire time I was doing it.
Alright, see, I'm putting Viola in like high A because I do like her, and I like her design too.
Yeah. Yeah, I put her in low A.
Ooh, a lead. About Justice Time. Don't forget Time.
Yeah, so Apollo Justice Time. Thank you, Dishnet.
Alita's an E.
Yeah, I don't like Alita that much. I'll put her in E. She's above Richard Wellington.
She's okay, but
she's like high D tier for me only because I really like her design.
She's just, I don't know. She doesn't stand out to me in any meaningful way.
Yeah.
I mean, the only interesting thing is that she happened to be the nurse for.
Yeah, that's true. And Dishnet brings up a good point. But the toe prints. The toe prints.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, no, I don't really have much to say on
Apollo, though?
Polly J.
Best tier. Sorry, he's like top of best tier.
Yeah, I'm putting him above Phoenix.
I'm putting him above literally everything else.
My boy.
My boy, I love him.
I love Apollo Justice so much. He's a fantastic character, and
he's very dorky. He's loud. You can tell he was so excited to be like, oh my god, I can't wait to be right. And then he sees him. He's like, Oh my god.
Mhm.
You're kind of an asshole now, like fucking punches him in the face.
Oh, Big Ball Jason, thank you so much for the follow 25 minutes ago. I don't have my alerts up on this scene, so I missed it. I'm sorry. But thank you very much.
And like, you really get to see him grow, especially in like Dual Destinies, and especially Spirit of Justice, where he's like, you know, I actually want to start my own like law firm, kind of, or like take over.
Yeah, I want to
like,
do what
take over.
Dirk wanted to do.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, no, Apollo grows so much. His backstory is kind of whatever the developers need it to be, but like he's still great. And like just in the present moment, Apollo is always funny, and you can just count on him for a good laugh and just enjoying yourself.
And, like he's still like openly emotional. Like I like that.
Yeah, I do like that. Darian.
He's like super cute. D for Darian.
Yeah,
let's
no,
go!
Darian's D. Sorry. I don't really like Darian very much. I like him better than Acro, I guess.
Like he got that penis looking hair.
He got that dick hair, yeah. Literal dickhead.
I mean, maybe he's tried shoving it up someone's ass or something. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. Okay. No, like, yeah, I don't really care much for Darian. Like, whatever. He's
also,
just...
I'm pretty sure he's just wearing like I'm pretty sure he's just wearing like a fucking onesie.
He might be. I don't know. Drew Misham, though. I like Drew Misham, actually.
He's interesting.
When we get to know of him, I like him.
I wish
I got to know more.
This is one of the few deceased people that we have to rank.
I gave him a...
I mean, because he was alive when you talked to him.
I gave him like a B, lowish B.
Yeah, I'll put him in like... I like him better than Bellboy, Terry, and Regina. And Mo.
Yeah, am I really gonna fucking put him below Lada? Jesus.
Actually, you know what? I am gonna put him above... I'm gonna put him next to Lana. Is this, yeah, this is Adventure of the Runaway Room. That's a great song. London Town is also a great song.
Guy Eldu.
Noodle Man! Noodle Guy.
Noodle Man! Actually, S tier. No.
He's an A.
I'm gonna put him in A. Sorry.
Yeah, he is an A.
Mid to low A, but he's a good character.
I think I like him better than D. Vasquez, but not as much as Ron.
Man, I kind of want to put him above David.
Yeah, the years have not been kind to Min Min, Blue Coin.
Now, Clavier, though?
Easy
S tier.
Is he in your highest tier or no?
My only he's a regular S tier, but he's on my top. My only problem with him is just he just does not get enough screen time.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. I do love Clavier, but like they need more of him.
They needed more.
They also need to re-record his objection before they put him in any more games.
Yeah. Achtung, baby.
Achtung, baby. I like that he's not actually German. He's just a
Europhile.
Yeah. Because like when he's voice acted, he has no accent whatsoever, and it's even confirmed that he is not German. He just lives there.
He probably just stayed there for like uni or something.
He went to Themis, so he probably didn't even have to go to uni.
Well, it seemed like Themis seemed more like a vocational high school.
No, I know, but like I thought you go straight out into and become like a judge or something, or like a pro. Because like Sebastian didn't go to college.
I'm sure. Well, but like Blaze the best, so.
True.
Probably pull some strings.
That's
there.
true.
Like
I'll put Clavier in S tier. I think I like him more than Iris, less than Mia. He's fun.
Now, Kristoff, though.
Yeah.
Actually, no. He's like next to Clavier.
Yeah. Oh, which I would hate to put him there, but that's where he's gonna go, because he's a top tier villain. Actually, I think he's I don't know if I like him as much as Shelly the Killer. So I'll put him lower in S, but still in S.
Oh my God! There's an image of Ibuki dressed as Clavier. I need to see that. Bitcoin, can you link it?
Please link that. I don't care where you link it. You can link it here. You can link it in my Discord. I don't care.
Link it in my ass.
Yeah.
Please.
No. Oh man, Lamiwa.
I love just the design alone is S enough for me to put her in S tier.
I think she'd probably be the lowest character in S. No, I'd put her higher than Elise, I think. But I think that she's so... Actually, she might be above... I'll put her above Will Powers and Manfred von
Why
Karma.
didn't you gonna tell?
I don't know.
It's killing me!
It's killing me too.
Die on side.
Yeah, no, I just absolutely...
Not having our bridge to turnabout issue, guys.
Please, no. Yeah, that'd
Like,
be...
I love her theme song. I love how she looks, and the fact that, like, she's basically like the Missy Fabo Public Justice, but I think... I'm not sure. I feel like she's Misty Faye, but I think pulled off a little bit better because you do get to see her, but you don't really know who she is truly until like near the end of the game, which I like a little more.
Yeah, that's true. Machi, I love his design.
Yeah, he's not interesting. He's okay.
He's a C.
Yeah, I'll put him in C. I think I like him better than Winston Payne. Actually, no.
Olga...
I think I'll put him... I like him better than Morgan.
Olga's a D for me.
Really?
I like her. I really like her,
but she's just there and like...
Well, she's the first case witness, so I mean, like, what can you do?
Yeah.
Tis the curse of being the witness in the first case. Honestly, bold of them to include a witness that wasn't the actual killer.
I know, right?
Right.
In the first case, so like, I don't know, I'd put her in like mid B. I think I like her better than Penny and Jean.
Yeah.
I like her better than Kudo,
no,
actually.
Sorry, I like her a little more than Innie.
Really? Okay. Where did you put Innie though?
She's like mid B.
Okay, because I put Innie in like mid A.
Yeah, she's like, yeah, both of them are like mid B. Ooh, Plum. I actually really like Plum.
I do like
I'm
Plum.
gonna put her in like...
I'll put her in A. I just don't know where in A.
Plum's an A, middle of A.
I think I like her, but I like her better
I like
than.
her a little bit better than Will Powers.
Yeah.
Oh boy, guess who started their second row of B tier?
Nice. I started my second row of S, A, and B.
I've only done S and A, not yet with B or C or any other ones. Brushel. Brushel deserves more love.
Yeah, Brushel does deserve more love. He's an A.
I actually do genuinely like him. He's B for. I'll put him B for Brushel right now.
I think I like him more than Plum, less than Noodleman. Yeah, Stitchnet.
Actually, no, sorry. He's a low A for me.
Good. We like that. Brucey! Are there just really few characters in Apollo Justice, or did we get through this really quickly? Because like,
I think we just got through this really quickly. Best. Oh no! Next to above Maya or below Maya?
I think below Maya, but just by a little bit.
I know, they're like basically on equal footing. Like Trucy has so much depth to her.
She does. That's true. S plus, yeah, absolutely.
Like she's like Nick's daughter. She's Apollo's half sister, and it has to take up the and basically also has to take up the mantle of like the Grammary.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's not a clan, but it's the troop. But still, same thing.
Yeah, same thing. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I love Trucy.
Also, only gets accused once.
Yeah, it's true. Love her to death. Valent, though.
You're a C at best.
Won't be a wait for clown ranking. No, goodbye, Blue Coin.
Here's the thing, I don't mind Valiant if he didn't, but he framed. For some reason, he had to frame.
Because he wanted the magic.
I get that, but at the same time, fuck. All the Grammars are jerks.
The men are all bad.
Nigga, where the fuck's Magnifi?
I feel like Magnifi definitely had some.
We never talked to Magnifi. That's why.
Yeah, he was only a victim.
I'll just put him in mid C.
I'm gonna put Valent in high D.
I put him high B.
I put him in high D.
There those a B. She's cute. She's a cute artist.
I love Vera. I'm gonna put her in A.
Vera's good. She is above Valent. Sorry. I think with Maggie, there's definitely a lot of nepotism, and it definitely is very obvious that he favored Zach over Valen. So that definitely did not help with Valen's self-esteem, because he knew.
Oh,
so
God.
I don't know. Should this asshole go an E or F?
I'm putting him an E.
Yeah, he's an E for me.
I don't care about Wesley Stickler.
Yeah, he's like, at least Meekins is like, oh shoot, memorable. There you go. But like, Stickler is like, who?
Oh boy, big wins Kitaki. Do we really have to rank him?
I mean, you do talk to him.
I guess, yeah.
He's okay.
His wife.
It's fine. I like him less than his wife.
Yeah.
By like a
he's
whole
okay.
tier, I think. I'll put him in like...
Yeah.
I'll put him above Terry Falls.
I put him above Viola. Honestly, they're equal, I think.
And I like Walk.
I do like Walkie.
He's a little irritating, but
He
I like
can
him.
be
He's a
irritating.
good kid.
He was extremely
irritating.
irritating the first time I played the case.
Low A for me.
Yeah, I didn't like him at first, but I came around.
He grew on me, but I think... No, not there.
Yeah, same.
No, not there either. Where did it go?
How are you guys all struggling? She's like, me, like, okay, I'm doing fine, and then like everyone else is like, oh god, where'd he go?
I am struggling. I don't know what it is. It's just like, I think my mouse is freaking out because like it keeps dropping the characters.
Okay.
Oh god, Zach. Ugh. E.
He's kind of he's a D for me.
I think he's either E or F.
He's high F into that.
Yeah, no, I think he's the highest
just-
F.
Like he might be a good daughter to Juicy, but he like overall as a person, he's kind of an asshole.
He's not
He's
even
a jerk.
not even that
There's a
good of a
full
father.
There's a 5-part comic about why Zach Grammer is a jerk.
He literally dipped in court, and then Phoenix had to take the blame.
He could have just like, hey, I actually do have this, and this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he's like, I'm gonna expose you in a card game. It's like, what? You come back?
You come back and have after all this and like you want
be
revenge.
like a deadbeat father. We took in your daughter, and this is all the thanks you give us, okay? Like,
Yeah,
huh?
like I did all this for you. You want revenge for nothing? What did I do? I don't understand it.
Okay, so.
Dual Destinies is starting now, y'all.
He's arrogant and pride. He's too arrogant and too prideful.
Yep. All right. Let me type that in real quick. Dual Destinies.
Means he's okay.
He's an E.
Yeah, Aristotle memes. Yeah, I don't care much for her Professor Memes.
Aristotle memes.
Professor Memes. The ends justify the memes. The rear end. The rear end justifies the beans. No, I don't care much for memes. He's fine, I guess. His transformation's cool.
Yeah, I guess he's above like Max, I guess.
I also knew he was the killer like the moment I met him.
No, it's alright. He's above Penny. There you go. I put him lower. Actually, no.
I put him in E.
No, above you.
I put memes
Yo,
in E.
you know what? Sure, I'll put him in. He's okay. He's okay. I'll put him in E.
Yep, you have a habit of doing this.
Yeah, I'm just so bad. I just go with my gut feeling, really. Athena, though, actually,
I want more of her.
Athena.
I want more of her though. That's the thing.
Oh god.
I feel like they put their eggs in one basket with her, cause like
I'm putting her in B right now, but hopefully more games like Ace Attorney 7, we can see more of her.
I remember when Junie was streaming for her subathon, we were ranking waifus and husbandos, and Athena came up, and we were not kind to her. Like, we like her, but like I was not very kind. I'm gonna put her in like high B.
She's
I like her more than
high
Maggie.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest.
She's
a lot.
fun. I like her.
I don't know how to rate some of these characters because it's been a while, so I might just not do. I don't know. I'll try my best.
I remember a lot of these characters, so it's fine.
I remember most of the characters.
You might remind me a lot of them.
We're getting to the recency bias section, so we should be good soon. But like, Dual Destinies is weird because like I'm not the biggest fan of Dual Destinies.
I'm fine with it. I enjoyed it. I think it's just I think for me Athena is just like I feel they definitely needed Athena. I think Athena was a good addition because it helps round out Apollo and Phoenix.
Yeah.
But I really do think they just put their eggs in one basket
need
for
to
her,
do-
and now they're just.
They
I feel like you could kind of tell they're struggling to kind of give her things to do because like, uh-oh, she's
Oh,
kind of
shit.
hit her character development in a sense.
Oh yeah, she developed in one game. She's over like everything, kind
Yeah.
of. I mean, she still has lingering
kind of.
effects of everything, but like.
Yeah, but like.
You can't really do much with lingering effects when the cause has been resolved. When the cause of them has been resolved completely.
Yeah, for her now it's just for her to like how to cope. Like learn how to properly cope with it. So.
I don't know what they're gonna do with her, like, but. Maybe.
If she had her own proper game, that would be nice. Also, the fact that most of the case, she's only really like.
She's the head in 2 cases.
One case.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. In 2 cases in the entire series, is she the playable character?
Yeah.
She needs more cases. She needs more.
She needs more. If they gave her like, if the new game had like focused on her like evolving as like a attorney with like Phoenix mentoring her, I would really like that actually.
The level to which they relegated her in 6 DLC is honestly upsetting. Like she had nothing to do in that case.
Cause that was like the nostalgia DLC.
Yeah, like they didn't want any new people, but like still,
hey.
I didn't like that. Like I don't know.
Aura
Blackwell. She's a lesbian, but like that's.
Yeah, she's lesbian. I actually genuinely like her design.
Yeah.
I love her design. Honestly, I love all the character designs in Dual Destinies.
She's a low A for me.
I'll put her in high B, below Athena.
She's like high B.
Aura Blackwell's fun. Bobby Fulbright. Where am I gonna put Bobby?
Okay.
Bobby's fine. Put him in like mid B. Put him in mid B, I think. Yeah.
High C.
Clay. I wish they did more with him.
Why do we have to rank Clay?
He had a portrait.
I guess, but so did Bruto Cadaverini. We didn't have to rank him.
He was important, I guess. He was important enough to the story. Because he is Apollo's best friend.
Mid C, honestly.
I really like him. I'm biased, but like I genuinely like him. I just wish they did more with him other than just being like, oh no, he's dead. Oh no, he serves as like backstory fodder for Apollo.
His design is great, but like I don't know.
That's why I'm only doing a C because we don't have anything with him.
Yeah, I'll put him in C. For Clay.
C for Clay.
I already like him better than Lotta, I can tell you what.
Yeah, I know, right? Damien Tenma. I like his shtick. I like his whole wrestler shtick, and his theme just ended, actually, which makes me sad. So no.
What case was he in? 2?
5-2.
5-2.
It's
Temataro.
I
like Damien Tenma. He's fun.
Yeah, he's definitely more fun than
I'll put him in mid B, I think. I like him better than Olga O'Reilly.
I don't know him as well, so I don't know where to put him. Should I just put my D?
I guess
you
you
could make a not enough information tier.
Yeah,
you could just do an IDK.
I don't know below.
Put IDK at the bottom. It's the only fair place to put it where it wouldn't be confusing.
There you go. I'll put him above Waki Kataki.
Where did I put Waki? Oh, I did put Waki. Okay, I see that. I put him above Olga.
Oh no. You.
Florent LaBelle.
I love his design.
I know he's very pompous. I just love pompous asshole characters.
Yeah.
He's really fun. Just really funny to me. But like he's okay.
LaBelle would have been so much better if they didn't immediately reveal he was the killer.
Yeah. That's my biggest beef.
Like even though his design screams killer, I didn't need to know that in the intro.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I'll put him in like. I'll put him above Bellboy, I guess.
Gasp in pain. He's like D.
Yeah, he's like a D tier. I don't care much for him.
Put him in E.
Actually, I'm putting Florent LaBelle in C. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, I put him in C.
Put him above Sawit. I saw it. D for Gaspin DePayne. Like it better than Meekins, maybe. Okay. See you, Dishnet. Have a good night.
Night.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, what's his? I think it's Dr.
Herman Crab.
Herman Crab, yes.
I love Dr. Crab.
I had it in my head and then just poofed away.
DLC case, right?
Yeah, he's
Yes.
honestly the best character in that case.
It's been a while since I've seen the DLC case, and I don't remember too much of the characters
Mhm.
besides,
Rhymes.
the novelist.
Oh,
right?
Norma.
No, the non-fiction. Yeah, Norma. But from what I remember, I enjoyed him.
Dr. Crab's entire character is that he's like sleep deprived from raising a penguin in his hair, and he also like when it comes to the case, he doesn't take sides. He just gives the information to whoever needs it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'll put him in B then.
I put him in C.
I actually want to put him in low A because he's one of the better characters in the whole game. In my opinion.
Yeah.
You know what? Sure, I'll put him in high B.
Put him in low A. He's below at me. Hugh O'Connor.
He's C tier.
Yeah, he's kind of C tier. I'll put him like above Cody, I guess.
I'll put him above LaBelle.
Yeah, I'll put him above
He's
LaBelle.
not a low character.
Put him in D.
Also, the fact that he was like he's actually 25 was I'm like, oh, huh. Them anime characters, they don't look older than high school.
Mm-hmm.
Kitty, why is it?
Jinxie though. Jinxie's fun.
She's cute. I like her design.
I do like Jinxie, yeah.
Don't know.
I'll put her in B tier, I think. I'll put her with her dad. But I like her
she's
dad
just
better.
not an interesting character. I
Yeah.
can't.
Her entire
To me, I'll put her-
character is that she's afraid of yokai.
Yeah.
No one cares about what you say. You're super French. Oh, Paper Star. Love that. Junie. Not Bug. Junie
Bug,
Woods. Yeah.
I know.
I like Junie.
She's about a C, honestly, for me.
I think I'll put her in B. There's a lot of this iteration of Junie in particular, I think, is better. The one that the picture they chose.
Mm-hmm.
I'll put her above Damien, I think. Mm-hmm. I like Junie. I think she's a fun character. It's very interesting seeing two completely different sides of her personality.
Mm-hmm.
The way she like takes charge in school and is just so frail outside is interesting. Oh boy, Marlon Rhymes.
He's okay.
I'll put him in like low C or high D.
I'll put him in like C.
I'll put him in D. I'll put him above Valent. I really just didn't end up caring much.
Is her first name Miriam?
Miriam Scuttlebutt, yeah.
Scuttlebutt. D. She's such a shame. She has such a cute design, but she has kind of just a horrendous personality.
Yeah, no, she's not good.
Where's she from?
The school case, 5-3.
Cool case.
She was in the box.
She had like a fucking cardboard cutter.
I forgot about her, so I'm just gonna put her in don't know.
Mm-hmm.
She had a box. She literally like.
She spring-loaded a box cutter so no one would open her
Yeah, and
script.
then he opened it and like literally like injured him. Literally, she should be expelled for like assault, essentially.
Yeah.
Like premeditated assault.
Mm-hmm. The only person she taught how to open that was Dr. Court. Yeah, I'm putting her in D tier. I'll put her above Gaspin solely for design.
Mm-hmm.
Norma de Plume.
I like her.
She's fine, I guess. There's nothing really there.
I mean, she's a low B for me, honestly.
Mm-hmm. I'll put her in like. I'll put her above Morgan Fay, maybe. The character rankings are such a mess because there's so many that it's so hard to sort through. At least with the cases, it's not that hard to sort.
Yeah, I think for me it's just really hard for me to rearrange who I like because it's just like I just put a lot of the recent characters on top because it's like it just feels natural to me.
Because like when you put it above somebody else, you realize, do I like this person who's below them better than them? It's the whole thing.
Yeah.
You feel like you have to rearrange the entire tier.
Yeah.
Why do we have to rank Orla?
Cause
It's
you
your
justify-
defendant.
I guess.
Let's go! Best tier!
I'll put her. She's an animal. She's gonna go in best tier.
Actually, no, I lied. She's like an A. Sorry.
No, I like Orla. She's cute.
Oh, yeah, it's true. Okay, yeah, I'll put fine. I'll put her in best.
Yeah. I don't. Tweet. She speaks in Chomp Call. She moves the star every time she speaks.
This guy, I'll put him like E.
Yeah, no, Phineas Filch does not do it for me.
Where was this guy from?
5'2".
5'2".
Again, I feel like a lot of 5'2" characters. I'm like, I don't. Although.
Don't worry, you're almost done with Dual Destinies.
Yeah, we just have to get
We got
through.
Rob-
Bad for dual destiny, but at the same time.
Robin Newman. I don't care about Robin Newman.
She's okay.
Yeah, she's fine. That is an orca, yes, Rabbit.
I'm just gonna put her in low C.
Like, I like her when like you finally realize, oh, you know what? I could just like take off these braces.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah.
No, I mean to be fair, I think it's implied that her parents pressured her or something.
Yeah, no, it's kind of it's that situation. So I'll put her in high D. I'll put her at the top of the like D tier. Actually, you know what? I'll put her at low C.
Oh my god, the man, roar! She was kind of irritating, but once in like the testimony she broke out, I'm like, oh, okay.
Even though the spelling thing, just the spelling out words thing, does not translate to an American audience at all. Sasha Buckler.
Who? She's okay.
She's fine, I guess. Like, she's neat. I'll put her in low
Yeah,
B. I think.
Ew, I really like all these characters above Clay. Sorry. Clay is still top.
that's why it's so hard to rank these characters.
Simon! Now, if it was like separate games, then I could probably rank these easily.
Honestly,
but, like,
you know what would be better? The thing
Yeah.
that Danganronpa tier makers do, where you have to pick between two characters and it just keeps going until you're out of options. That would work way better. But that makes for less of an interesting stream.
Well, I think that's just a site you can do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a different site in total, but like I don't think that exists for Ace Attorney.
Oh, rip.
Mm-hmm.
Simon!
No, he's S plus for me. I love him.
It's so difficult because like I like him.
Mm-hmm.
I really do like him.
I cosplayed him, so you know.
You like him enough to cosplay, so you know that's easy as for
Well,
you.
I mean,
He's
like,
also,
to be fair, I
he's
also
also,
did cosplay Man for Gun
hot.
Karma. Yeah,
Yeah.
he is hot. Say it louder.
He's so fucking hot.
I know.
He kills me.
Ooh, Gina's theme is on. Banger alert.
Sorry, you say that, and then I have what? What's the song? Hold on. I have Detention Center
Oh no.
from like Dual Destiny. I actually do like it.
Yeah.
It's like nice and somber.
Yeah.
Solomon Starbuck. He's okay. I did like. He was a little more character.
Solomon Starbuck was fine. He just got annoying after like the 700th sigh.
Yeah, I guess so.
He even had Black Hole sighing like him.
I like him because he's also part of like Apollo's childhood.
Mm-hmm.
Cause like they always like he and Clay always came to like see him and stuff.
I'll put him above. I'll put him above Waki Katari. No, I'll put him above Kudo.
Also, I'm glad that they like have like he has PTSD because you know you gotta remember like you know space is scary.
Mm-hmm.
Being stranded up there, and they don't really gloss over the fact that like he's traumatized from it. So
Yeah.
I mean, he eventually gets enough courage to go back into space again, but you know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad he didn't just brush it on the rug.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I put him in B tier, above Kudo and below Olga. Actually, you know what? I like him better than Olga and Jinxie and Damien. And Junie and Drew. Whoops. I really screwed that one up the first time I ranked it. Jesus. Oh boy, Ted Donate. I don't care.
He's an E.
Yeah, he's an E. Just because I don't care about him. Still like him better than like.
He's got an interesting design. I'll give him that. But like, yeah.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Captain Cosmos. Ooh.
Director Cosmos is one of my favorites. I'm putting him in S. I don't care.
Yeah,
I don't remember him enough, but I like his design, so I'll put him in C.
I like him better than Will Powers. But like, I absolutely love Director Cosmos. He's so funny. He's such a braggart and so self-absorbed, but yet self-aggrandizing, but he still cares so much for his crew. It's really interesting. I feel bad that he gets demoted at the end of the case, though.
Guess what we're at now?
Spirit of Justice. I love this game. This will be interesting. I'll be...
Your guide!
Yeah.
I'll put him at B, low B.
Yeah, I'll put him in
C.
low B.
He's okay.
It's fine, I guess.
He's above Bobby, I guess. Actually, no, sorry. He's above everyone.
He's above Maggie.
Amara.
Milf?
You're not wrong.
Yeah, I guess she's quite
You're
pretty.
not wrong.
She's gorgeous. I just wish we had more time to get to know her.
Put her in A.
Mm-hmm. And I guess
I'll put her in A.
I guess I can rank her as like
Because
Nana
here's the-
as well.
Yeah, because she's the Nana, and she truly cared to be by her daughter's side. So yeah, A.
Yeah, A. I don't know where in A I'm gonna put her though.
And she still cared for Dirk.
I'll put her above Angard. No. I'll put her above Violetta. Army. I love Army Buff. Actually, he's so adorable. I want somebody to adopt her.
I will give her. She's in B.
I'll give her low A.
I like her.
Mm-hmm.
I really do enjoy.
The plot twist that she was actually like a 12-year-old girl was a real twist. I expected like a 25-year-old man, especially with how old Dr. Buff is. It's Dr. Buff 64. Believe in me. I like Believe, actually.
She's okay.
Mm-hmm.
She's okay.
I'll put her in B.
I'd say B or C.
B for Believe.
Mm-hmm. Her name is
Betty.
fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Betty and Bonnie. Oh, Lord.
I'm putting them together.
Yeah. They're kind of a unit.
D or E.
Really? I don't think they're that low, but I...
They're great, but they don't do much.
I love
besides,
Bonnie's
like...
so cute. Bonnie's so cute, though.
Mhm.
Well, I like Bonnie more than Betty.
Mm-hmm. I do
put them
too.
in C.
I'll put them in B.
I'll put Bonnie at like... I really like her design. A, and I'll put Bonnie at like... B.
You mean Betty?
Yeah, Betty.
Mm-hmm. Betty should...
Oh.
Betty, I think, will definitely go in B. They're probably one of the more interesting witness duos we've had to deal with.
Yeah, they're really fun.
Mm-hmm.
Oh boy.
Oh, Bucky? Oh, Jesus.
Bucky! Actually, I kind of like him.
I don't know.
Cause
I love Bucky.
I kind of do like him.
I do enjoy Bucky, but I don't know how much.
Cause like, he's a disaster. Comes
Mhm.
like
He's a
shows up,
C.
like shows up drunk.
Mhm.
He's a C.
I put
Like
him in
fucking
mid B.
passes out.
Mm-hmm. B
But
for
like,
Bucky.
he proves his own innocence. So he's
Mhm.
like, I'm giving food to everyone, just to prove that I don't got weird smelling soba.
Mm-hmm.
That's is a S plus.
That's his S. I don't know if he's S plus, but he's S.
I
He's
like
the
that
A.
level.
He's a A for me.
He's-
Oh wait. Oh look, I started my A. Second row of A.
Honestly,
Oh,
the only tiers that don't have a second row for me are D, E, and F. And
Yeah,
we'll
D, E, hemorrhoids, and like, yeah, that's it.
we'll round them out once we get to like investigate.
With Orga started my second row.
Mm.
Dirk, now Dirk,
S
no.
plus.
Dirk is
S
S plus. No way. No way he could be anything else.
He's an A for me, I think, right now.
Daddy
I had to,
Dirky.
I had to rearrange everything. Dilf. Yes, he is a Dilf. Like, damn.
Oh
Dirk
shit!
is
Thank you, Brabbit, for saying Thank you, Brabbit, for dividing up the Spirit of Justice, because I completely forgot again.
Ellen Sprock. I like her design. She's cute. She's got a cute design.
Mm-hmm. Oh yes, Peas Love and Andestan is a fantastic pun.
I know, it's so funny.
Mhm.
All right,
But,
I'll put Ellen in like C.
I'll put her in D. I really don't care. The thing is, like, the thing about Ellen is that she's so noisy.
She is very noisy.
And whose underwear is that? Soren's?
Probably.
Yeah.
Garon.
Garon. She's a fantastic
She's
villain.
I don't know. She's like A for me.
A or S? I'm trying to figure which one.
I'll put yeah.
I'll put her in S.
Sorry, man. I really like Tam. I'm really putting her above Athena.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah. Okay. All right. All right. I'm putting Bikini above too.
Yeah, no, I'm putting Garan below Lamiwa and above Manfred. Actually, no, below Manfred. They're pretty close though.
What's her name?
Geiru.
Geiru. There's something.
No, I'm straight for Geiru, so you know.
Okay.
She's a B.
I love her design so much.
She's got a cute design.
She's so pretty.
It's like out of the whole cast, she has the most outlandish design. Honestly, I can appreciate
I'm
it.
putting her in S mostly because of her design. Like, I think she's fun. No, actually, I'll put her in A. She's one of my favorite designed characters, but design doesn't always win the day. Like, her motive is kind of weak. I think I like her more than Plum, though. Inga.
He's like B, I guess, for me.
He's
B or
really
A.
intimidating. They do that really well.
Oh yeah, that's true.
A.
I put him in low A.
I guess for me, I never had that impression. Like, you just a schmuck. Like, he'll get his comeuppance somehow.
I thought he was gonna be the final boss, and then he wasn't.
When I saw Garon, I'm like, oh, she gonna be something.
No, I had a feeling one of them was going to be the final boss, but I didn't realize it would be the situation that it was. I kind of thought they actually cared about each other as a couple. But nope. Oh man, Kurine Judge. He's cool.
He's okay.
He's an S.
Not
as good as the other judges, but he's still up there.
He's probably my least favorite judge, but like, oh Jesus. Oh my god.
You know, I'll put him in... I think it's... I appreciate him being, like, telling off Rayfa. It's like, well, if you don't like it, you can get out of my courtroom. So...
I don't like where I put these judges, because I don't like Maple Judge or Bryony's Judge more than Mia, so I'm gonna switch some stuff around. There we go. It's bad.
Yeah, I'll put him, like... right below low A tier, I guess.
Oh, Nayuta, honey.
You could have been so much better!
I want to
He's
like you
a
so
C.
much more.
He's a C. He's a very high C for me.
Your good characterization was not until the end, so you know what?
I mean, like...
Actually, you know... actually, no, he's kind of a high B for me. Okay, sorry.
I'm putting him above Winston Payne. He's the highest C I have.
Oh, no, actually, I'm looking at it. No, sorry. You go back to C. You go back to C, honey.
You know what? Sasha
This
Buckley
guy
should get
is F.
downgraded too.
This guy's an
Yeah.
F.
Paul, oh my god. Oh, he's so funny, but that's it.
He's an F.
Yeah, I'll put him in E just because he's funny.
I can't stand him. He's an F.
He's high C for me just because of how funny he is.
You know what? Actually, no, he's going up to D.
Love it. And Sandon, you're going to A. Low A.
And a stand-in?
No,
and a
he's in
stand
D.
and a stand in what? In C for you?
No. I was debating a politician.
Oh no, I'm putting him in D, yeah.
I'll put him in B. I'll put peace, love, and understanding in B.
Yeah, I'll put him in B. I think I like him more than all B. No, why is all B so high up? Oh, put all B back down.
You're gonna put it in there.
I know, but like, why did I do that?
I'm gonna die trying to like rearrange this. I might just like do it as is and be like, I'll live.
Yeah.
I'll live and watch people get mad at me.
Sozuki's song, the theme is on right now. I love that song. Oh, Pierce Nickety. Oh god. He's such a good design.
I know! He's so pretty, but like...
He's so hot.
Oh no, he's hot.
It's
Okay, I'll
like-
put him above
C.
politician. I'll put him above politician.
Yeah.
You know, he's an E.
I'll put him above Ellen Wyatt and Acro.
Rafa! I
S.
actually really like her.
S plus.
I'll put her like here. I'll put her like high A.
She's amazing.
I think I like her more than Dirk. I don't know.
Do I like her more than Godot and Athena? Yeah, actually.
Yeah, I do.
Sorry. Sorry.
Hey, not Johnny Depp time.
Alright, Tony Stark, let's go.
Okay, Roger Ratens is like actually like a really good villain.
He's like actually low S tier, not gonna lie. He's like,
Yeah.
I put him low key S tier. Alright.
I did it.
He's
I
like-
did as well.
There you go. I did it.
Soren Sprocket. I like the retrograde amnesia thing. I really
yeah,
do.
I do like him. He's got good design.
Mhm.
Blue hair.
I'll put him in
the
like
only
I'll put him in low B, I think. What are you saying, Rosie? I'm sorry.
No, I'm just humming and humming. I'm just humming and humming to myself.
I like how this goes between we spoil the entire case and game, or like we don't even discuss it at all.
Okay, yeah. I have so many B's. I swear, I'm gonna like have like a third list.
No,
I've already broken into my fourth row of C's.
Bro,
I
Rosie,
trust.
take all the B tiers and like, or B's and C tiers and rank them amongst themselves.
No, I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna have to at this point.
Um,
Taros, I like the concept of him like his
Dude.
plan.
yeah.
Very interesting.
I'm giving him a.
But like also he kind of died for nothing because his wife just confessed.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I feel a little bad for
Paper
him.
Star, you were sad that who was the culprit?
I think.
It
Rogers?
must be referring to Pierce Nickety, I think.
Oh,
Based
you know
on
what?
the
That
fact-
makes
Roger Ratens. Okay.
Yeah, I was right.
Okay.
Yeah, let's go.
I forgot we ranked
I'm-
Roger already.
I think we're on the last character of.
Uendo.
I don't know where to put Tarust. I think I'll put him in C.
Easy S tier for me.
I'll put
Sorry.
Tarust in C. I like him better than Sasha Buckler.
Yeah.
Oh,
Alright, I
Window
put
is
Window in
easily.
S.
Yeah, Window's S for sure.
He's such a fun witness. Honestly, the best witness in like a one-off case.
Mhm. One of the best, yeah. I like him better than Manfred, I think.
He's got great design, fun personality.
Mhm. Oh, sure, yeah.
Alright. Callista. Wait.
Let's go to
Also, his
investigation.
animation. Also, his animations. We don't really talk about animations as much, but like he has such fun animations.
Mhm.
Like, honestly, Callista's a C.
Callisto's
Callisto,
a-
you.
Yeah.
I
D. I like her better than Ballant, I guess.
Oh god, Cammy.
I love Cammy Beale, actually. I don't know why I love her
like
so
her
much.
design. That's really it.
I think she's a fun
E.
character. I'll put her in B, actually.
Although, actually, no. You know what? I do like it when she gets serious, so I'll put her in like a C. I'll put her in like low C. Fuck
was-
below Cody Hackett.
I was gonna put her in
And
low B.
no.
I think I like her better than Angel Star and Bellboy. How many times have I said I like her better?
Listen, if you're above Lada, that's like that's like better.
Mhm.
Like most characters.
Yeah. Here's the thing. It's like how many times in this stream have I said I like them better than Bellboy and Angel Star? Because we ranked them so early, so it's such an
I
easy.
know.
It's such
It's
an
like,
easy
alright,
thing
they're
to
like
do.
bottom of the barrel because they're just like so bottom of the barrel.
No, they're not even bottom of the barrel. They're in B tier.
Yeah.
So I said this list is
Well,
a
you
mess.
put them in B. Well, you're the one with the B tier.
I know, but this list is an absolute mess.
Alright, I don't remember this guy's name.
Callias Polano. He's honestly one of the nicest characters.
Yeah, like I like the fact that they make him like kind of like a little like he kind of
He's
they kind
sussy.
of make him look a little like a little sussy, a little racy looking.
Yeah.
Sleazy, but he's like genuinely nice.
He's actually
So
generally
I'll
one of the
give
better
points
characters.
for that. So I'll put him in like a C tier.
I was actually gonna put him in high B. Or mid B, I think. I like him better than Believe. No, I like him better than Penny. This
Also,
list
not
is
gonna lie,
such a
sometimes it's
mess.
just weird to see like nice drawn like high res art and then go back to like pixel
Mhm.
in the middle. It's like, oh, it's
Mhm.
weird.
Ernest Amano. is one
don't
of the
care about him.
least interesting
I
characters.
don't care about him. I'm like,
I'm putting him in F. I don't even give a shit. All he does
Horsemen
is
don't
get in
care
your way.
either.
As far as I know, all he's ever done in my life is get in my way and annoy me.
And then meanwhile, the next character is also in F tier.
Is
because
it
I don't
Sportsman? Yeah,
I
no.
don't care about him either.
I'm putting him right there.
I mean, he's got
Yay.
like he's got interesting colors. I guess that's about it.
Yeah. Kay Faraday. S.
S tier.
Yeah, not S plus.
She's like A for me. She's A for me.
Say for me.
Also, that's my third S character.
Hey,
Third row
Flargrah.
S character.
Hey, Flargrah. A for me?
Yeah.
A for me?
A for me.
A for me?
A for me.
Say for me?
Who's this fucker?
Lance Amano.
Lance?
Yeah.
He
was the
him,
killer.
right?
Yeah. No,
Oh.
he's.
This bitch.
Yeah, no, I don't like him either.
I kind of like his design, so I'll give him that. But he's like at the top of hemorrhoids, which is not saying much. So.
Mhm.
He is the third lowest character for me.
Oh my god. This entire case is just a train wreck of characters. Oh
I
my
know.
I
god.
don't care for this
Laura.
one.
She's
Lauren
okay.
Pops.
I like the design a little more. I'll
She's
put
in
it.
F. I forgot about her and I
I
don't care.
cannot pretend I
Alright.
care.
Alright, I've officially made a second list of a second row of D tiers.
Well, I hit second row to F.
I've almost hit one. We're gonna get there.
Oh god, Quercus Alba, fuck, no.
I actually think
My-
I kind of like
extraterritorial
Alba.
Powers my extraterritorial rights are too powerful to let this game end. Stab wound. Hot dog. Objection. Cross examination.
He's a D for me, I don't care.
I'm actually gonna
He's
put
like
him
the-
in B.
He's like D for me.
He's a D.
Actually, no, I'm not. I'm gonna put him in C. He's above Thrust.
Actually, no. He's at least above Cody Hack. Jesus Christ.
I don't like them.
I like Alba Standoff too. It does take a long time.
Like,
Rhoda, I don't care.
I like her looks, but not that she actually, you know,
I guess
She's
I like her better than
I-
Florent LaBelle, I guess.
I
She's
give her
okay.
C. She's a C.
Yeah, I put her above Florent in C. P. Long Lang, though. Finally, an actual character.
A for me at least. Actually, no,
mean-
A or S? No, sorry, S for me. Sorry, he's
I'm-
like super hot.
No, I'm putting him. I'm
Sorry,
putting him.
he's super hot.
I'm putting him above Bikini. For some reason, he doesn't do it for me. I think he's too hunky.
B for me.
Man,
know.
I used to think twinks were like super hot. Now I'm like hunks. Yes.
No, I'm a Twinks person still.
Mina, I don't.
Wow. Well, I
What's
mean,
this
Van
one?
Zeeks is kind of like a twunk.
No,
person. He
Van
kinda
Zeeks is a twink.
kinda-
Yeah.
He kind of
Why-
twunky.
Why
Can we
is, why is Sheena here?
I don't know because they're basically
She's-
different characters.
Yeah.
I'm
But-
playing with
essentially.
Calista.
I don't even know. I don't see where I put Calista.
Well, I like her design over
Oh, see.
Callisto Use, so I'll put her in like. I actually really like the design.
I
I'll
mean,
put
the
her
only
like
thing
A.
she does is she gets one above Calista. She's right in front
I'll
of
put her like low A.
Wow, when you put them next to each other, they actually do look almost exactly.
Yeah, what's the point?
I think that's.
Oh, now this
I mean-
character here
Yeah, this is
mean,
S.
There is a point to her being similar.
is S plus for me.
This is S plus,
Love-
yeah. I love Vective
Bad
Bad
so
so much. He's one of my favorite characters. I
Alright,
actually like
cool.
him more than Dirk, but I think I like him less than Gumshoe.
Oh god, this fucker guy. I'm putting him in
Oh
F.
man,
Oh.
I'm.
The single block.
Fuck's sake, the block.
The single block is so funny. But that's all he is.
That doesn't save him though.
Wait, are we really done with the characters and investigations one?
Yeah, we're done.
You.
He's okay. He exists. I
Meanwhile,
guess. He's really funny.
Putting him in D.
Blaze the best.
Blaze. He's like B for
He's
Blaze.
BP.
Yeah, he's in B.
He is very intimidating.
But he's weird. as
Sorry, apologies.
fuck.
Like,
Nurse.
Bonnie Young, really?
E.
E, I guess.
she's okay. She exists.
Yeah, and I
Words are
think
hard.
I think she exists. Like, how do you know?
Yeah.
Ooh, Gustav.
Oh, Gustavia. Okay.
He's a C.
That's why
Yeah.
at some point we gotta rank all like the hot Ace Attorney guys based on like
How hot they are.
yeah, how hot they are in their build.
Yeah.
I like.
We gotta do like a hotness ranking and then like they're like a twink bear.
Yeah.
rank.
Oh, the pyramid scale. Yeah. Twink
Yeah.
Twink Hunkenberry. Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know what to do
we
with.
can have twunk.
Oh
we
yeah.
can have it in between.
Oh
Twunk.
no, it's a spectrum, so it's fine.
Okay.
I'm putting Gustavia in C tier. I like him better than Alba, I guess.
Yeah, he's like C tier.
Oh no, Sholmes is stupid sad violinist. Why is that in here? I guess it's a song.
I don't know. There's so many characters. I just gonna put an opinion like fucking below Kodiak, I guess.
Delicia? I don't know what to do with Delicia.
I put Delicia up. I like.
She's got a unique character design.
I put her as A. I like her.
I do like Delicia. I just don't know where it.
I'll put her above like.
I put her above Reggie.
I'll
I put her above
Acro.
Bucky.
Oh my god, it's fine. You're in your 4th row of B's.
I know.
I'm in my 4th row of C's. I'm about to start a 5th row.
Okay.
Oh
God.
The president?
You a D.
Dijon Mustard. Where are we gonna put him?
Dijon Mustard. Shoot. Okay, if he was the actual president, I would put him in like B tier, but like if
This is the body double. Yeah.
This is the sussy one. He's like C.
I'm putting him in D. I don't care.
Man,
No.
I'm really just.
You're being nice to these characters.
No, I'm not. I was like, maybe I should put Acro lower than like Lotta, which I just did, by the way. So.
Good. Oh God, Gregory Edward. Now this is a character right here.
Okay, now he's like S tier. Sorry, alright, cool.
He is. He's S tier. I think I like him better. I don't know if I like him better than his son or not.
I put him right next to the top because he's like one of my favorites.
He's great.
Gregory's great.
Horace Knightley. I don't care.
But you know,
When you not you suck.
B.
Just for that meme, huh? It's not even a meme.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna put him in B just for that. It's really funny.
D.
I'm putting him in E. I like him better than Phineas Filch, I guess. Jay Elbert, why are you here? Oh.
And he's like E.
He's also E.
I should know. I should know. I tolerate him slightly.
He
more,
has a
bro.
polar bear, is the thing.
You're right.
D.
Master. Oh yeah, hell.
Jeff Master? Yeah.
He's like he's S or A for me.
I think he's low S.
Yeah, he's low S. Okay,
He's mid S.
John. I actually do like him. I actually do like him.
He's fine, I guess.
John. Oh no, I lost him. I accidentally right clicked.
Ha ha ha. Now you know what it's like.
Well, I accidentally right clicked, so that was my problem.
Low C, I guess. Better than Lotta. Better than Cody.
I'll put him in like, you know what? I'll put him in B.
Yeah, I'll put him in B, I think. He's better than like Bucky Wet and Big Wins and Delicia. No, he's worse than Delicia. Justine.
Alright, she's like
B.
Mommy
she's
tier.
yeah, as for like
Actually,
the
no. A. She's in my A tier.
Yeah, I think I'll put her in like low S as well.
actually no,
I
maybe high A.
don't. Oh, forgot about her. I don't care for her.
Who? Don't
The
know.
nurse assistant.
Karen Jensen.
I like her grandma. Actually, I like her grandma a little more.
I'm just gonna put her with her grandma in E. I don't give a shit. Oh, Catherine Hall. I like Catherine Hall.
Catherine E. S.
Catherine's better than Master Jeff.
Sorry, I'm gonna put her above Courtney.
Where the fuck did I put Courtney? I can't find her.
She's also like super pretty.
Oh.
Help. I can't find
God.
Justine. Oh, I found her. Okay, never mind.
I can't find mommy.
I can't find my mom. I'm lost in the store. Nicole? Oh, Jesus.
I put her in F.
She's
Worse
like D
Lotta.
for me. She's okay for me.
He's worse Lotta. Okay for me? I like her better
Wait,
than
I really
Alita.
like her less than Lada, but I
Be-
guess.
Oh man, Patricia
This is so
Rowland.
hard!
This is really hard, actually. I think we underestimated how.
Because you had to rank everyone above everyone else. It's like.
I think we underestimated how
Patricia
difficult
a
these
B.
would be. Patricia's a
Yeah.
B? I would put Patricia in like C or B. I don't know.
Yeah, why did I put Callisto you so high? Fuck that. Alright, bitch, I'll put you like
The
right
best
next
is-
to like Winston.
The best is like seeing what you ranked like an hour ago and be like, I was such an idiot in my youth.
I know, right?
Like as a child, I was so stupid. Why did I do this?
Oh man, I almost lost Patricia there for a moment.
Yeah, no, I don't know where to put Patricia. I guess I like her better than Quercus Alba. Why is Quercus Alba so high? No, Jesus.
Yeah, fuck that. I'm putting him in E. Fuck Quercus, you piece of shit.
I'm putting him above Cody Atkins. You know what?
He's an E for me because I don't care for this extension shit.
Shit, Raymond.
Ray
I actually do
Shields.
like Raymond.
I do
He's an
like
S.
Ray. Yeah, he's an S.
S.
He's next to Gregory as he should be.
Yeah. I'll put him slightly below Gregory.
Sebastian D for
Ugh.
D for the best.
Really? You think he's a D rank?
No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
He's an A.
You didn't care for
He's
Danny
like,
Green
he's like
Gun
a B-
Shields?
He's like a B for me.
Look, he grew on me after, his
Yeah.
change, so
Mhm.
he's an A.
I personally just don't care for Danny Game Rum Shield.
All right, I'm gonna be honest with this one. I don't care about Simon.
Ooh, how dare no, I'm just
No,
kidding.
I don't really care either.
He's an E.
I need another cut chocolate. Hold on.
He's
He's like mid-tier E, because I don't care.
I think just to reveal that it was Simon was better than actually Simon than himself.
Mm-hmm. I'm actually gonna
That's
put
just
Simon
the
in D tier.
reveal.
Mm-hmm.
He's like Heidi.
Who the fuck's this one again?
That's Shirhan Dogan.
The blind assassin.
He's cool as shit though.
Blind assassin has a service dog he trained to like kill people.
Mid-C, fuck it.
I really like him. He's like,
Oh my god, are we
he-
actually here?
He's like okay.
Are we
I like
actually-
Dogan better than Godot.
Yes. Yeah,
Oh,
we're
baby.
yes. Okay.
That lady first.
Yes, that is Lady First. Oh man, Great Pursuit came on as we got to this game.
Lady first.
Lady first. All right. I'm gonna put him in D for Dumpy.
Dumpy. No, he's just
He is
there.
a D. He's just there.
He's
doesn't-
got a cute design.
Okay, you know
though.
what? He did testify that he ripped a massive fart in the omnibus.
That's true.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, he's D.
He testified
All
that
right,
F for
here
fart.
comes your husband.
Jeez, why
Hold on,
are
I'm
we
still
put
ranking
this one
first.
down?
I'm still ranking Lady First. Relax.
Wow.
Yeah, now put him in like C
It's
tier.
really funny how he's the first on the list. Haha, haha, funny.
Mm-hmm.
Twy, where are you gonna put this one? At? I don't
Watermark.
know. Where?
Sorry, I'm gonna put him above. No, I'm not.
He is. I am putting him at like S.
Sorry,
for me.
no. Sorry, he's above Lemore.
I do like Barak a lot.
Barack Van Zieks is actually the second most popular prosecutor according to Famitsu readers.
I don't blame
Interesting.
that
Mhm.
because he's really good. He's like the
He's
one.
really hot.
He's someone that actually would challenge Naruhodo.
He's actually probably the smartest prosecutor in the series.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he really is.
Mhm.
Doesn't really give a lot of info. Doesn't
Mhm.
really help the defense as much.
No, he does, but like only because he wants to know the truth,
Yeah.
not because he screws
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
Well, I mostly meant outside of court.
Mhm.
Beppo.
In court,
Beppo.
Is this Beepo or Sandwich?
That's Beppo. They're both the same character.
Okay.
Same.
Well, okay. I just want to know this is Beepo.
Sandwich is Beppo who lost his job after
Mhm.
Yeah, I just wanted to be sure who.
Oh no, they're both on the list actually.
Yeah, see, that's why I asked.
What?
They are.
What?
Okay.
They're the same character.
Yeah, but
Change different. I mean, different, same person, but like different aliases. So
Mhm.
Look,
consider
look-
different.
Beppo's
I
like
don't. But here's the thing. You say that, but I don't see fucking what's his face?
We'll get there.
Alright, I'll put him in like low C tier. Alright, with that, I'm pretty sure any next character I put in like C tier is gonna start a 5th row of C's.
Do I like him better than... You know, I do like him better than Lady First.
I got a C. I'm in a C full of C's.
Mm-hmm. Oh god, Maggie McGee.
You're going to S, buddy.
He's great.
You're a fucking devious bastard.
Magnus McGilden is a fantastic character.
He's E, but I genuinely he's a scumbag, but he's kind of fun. He's a fun scumbag.
Good, like I hate him, but because I wanted to believe. I hated him because I wanted to believe in him.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. This guy I kind of don't remember him, but he got a cool design.
Oh, Villain Borshevik. He shows up once. Yeah. He's a member of the jury, but you read about him in case 2.
Oh yeah.
Because he's the Russian fugitive.
I am Taurus from Russia. I am Taurus.
Mm-hmm.
I am Taurus from Russia.
I would like to go to Crystal
Gina!
S+.
Easy S.
Where the fuck do I put Villain Borshevik?
I'm sorry, Lang. You're gonna be above.
I put him above B.
Gina.
You know what? I'm gonna put him above Beppo.
Now, Gilf.
Loki S+ as well.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Actually, S+. Sorry.
I'm putting S+ because holy shit.
Sorry, I had to separate the Judge brothers.
Oh no.
It breaks my heart.
He is so dastardly evil. It's impressive.
This guy, I know he was at the pawn shop. He like dies immediately.
Yeah,
he immediately dies. I don't care about him.
He's the victim, which I mean, he was kind of funny, so I guess I'll give him D.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of him. Iris.
Hold on, who did we just rank? I'm sorry, I was kind of typing something in the chat.
Up in the bank.
Wait, in the bank?
Yeah.
Whatever. He's funny, I guess.
I put him in D.
That's where I would put him too.
I don't really care much about him.
Iris, though,
I do very much care. I want it to grow healthy. I
would put Iris in S+. I don't care. I don't give a shit.
I want to know more about her. Cause she's a smart one. She's gonna find out she's a fucking Vantix down the line.
Male Strongheart, yes, Rabbit definitely belongs in S.
Giselle Brett, just design alone is like S+ tier, not gonna lie.
I'm sorry, her name's Anne Assassin.
Atha Shin.
Asa Sheen.
I'm gonna give her a fucking E.
E, huh? Yeah, she's kind of a bitch, huh?
Actually, F. You're F.
I mean, she kind of racist, though.
She's.
I'm sorry.
Kinda.
Okay, if we pick racism as like a trait, we have to rank all of these characters on that. So be careful.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, she's like a D because it's kind of funny that she gets killed because of her fucking big mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Her design is just very just.
Joan.
The only thing that's moving her up is design.
Joan, I don't like her. She literally pours tea on her fucking like physically disabled husband, and I'm like, no, thank you.
You know, Joan is
actually, no, I'm sorry. She's like hemorrhoids. Sorry, I put her in hemorrhoids too.
She's like an E or D to me.
I'm putting her above. I'm putting her above Ted Tonate.
Wow, she's like, literally nobody else in like any of the other modern Ace Attorney games are like in the hemorrhoids tier besides her. When I say modern, like the 3D ones, yeah, she's the only hemorrhoids one.
Yeah, no, I think I'm gonna Mr. Garadev though. I'm definitely ranking highly.
He's definitely high. I actually like. I do like him.
I think I'll put him in A. I just don't know where.
John Garadev.
I'll put him like
mid
high
A.
C.
I like him better than Bikini.
Yeah.
No, you know what? No, I like him more than Naruto. I take that back. Actually, do I? No, they're about the same. Sorry.
Oh man, we are back to having S tier judges again.
Santa!
Santa judge actually like just as much as regular judge.
Yeah, actually.
He's
so for some reason I find him really adorable just because he has the little like the wig. He's very adorable to me.
Rabbit, that's such an amazing moment when you reveal everything that's going on with the Reaper and yet the gallery still cheers for Strongheart.
I know, right?
Strong heart, strong heart. I love that moment so much.
Kazuma! S plus, S plus, S plus. Okay.
Honestly, you know
Sorry.
something? This is like this. I really wish more of my friends would stream Great Ace Attorney. Like honestly, I want
wish
them to
all
play.
of our friends didn't know about Ace Attorney
One of our friends will probably stream next year, maybe for them.
ooh.
Oh really?
Anyways, Kazuma is best
I think
tier.
it's limits.
Really?
No, I'm sorry. Oh.
You think?
No, sorry. Okay.
You think they're gonna do it? Oh, Kazuma? Yeah, Kazuma's pretty.
Sorry, Kazuma's above. Like he's like in the and like okay, if he and Apollo were like the breads of like the fucking animal sandwich and like the best tier, he's like at the very end of it, and Apollo's like at the very top. That's what's happening right now.
Wait, where are you putting Kazuma? In S plus?
Yeah, S plus, like
Huh.
literally right below. We're literally on the like right below.
I dropped Kazuma in A for a second while I
Orca.
rearranged some things, but like I'm putting him like next to the Orca. I'm putting
I
him.
literally put him right below the Orca.
Be careful though, because Masked Man is also on this list.
Oh shit, that's true.
Yeah.
Also, Kazuma's
beef-
super hot.
Beef Stroganoff. Is chicken on this list too?
Chicken's
I-
on this
Chicken
list.
is on this list. Yeah.
Okay, I like him just because of the name, so that's enough for me.
I'm
Why
putting
is a
him
Masked
C.
Man here and not older? You're asking the wrong person. Asking the wrong person.
no.
Paper. I swear to God, if Limit decides to stream Greatest Attorney, I'll be there. Of course, I would be there no matter what. But like, no, like
Oh,
Beef is fine, I guess.
I give him a C.
Yeah, I'm putting him in C. I like him better than Machi and
He's
LaBelle
like
and Rhoda.
He's like in like my
I'll-
sea of mid tiers.
I like him.
C.
I like him better than Lotta.
Oh yeah, true.
Nash. Wait, is this Nash or that one?
That's. I think that's. God, which one? I think that might be Ringo.
I kind of don't care about him.
I like them both.
They're fine.
They're B. They're middle B.
Nash is pear, Ringo's apple. So this is Nash? Yeah, because he's green.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll put him in like B. I like him better than Angel Star and Bellboy and Terry Falls and Cammy Meal and Soren and
Okay.
Big Wins. Yeah. Not Alina Pavlova. Mikolina Pavlova, my bad.
Yeah.
I actually like. I haven't ranked Waggy yet. We're getting there.
I really like her design.
I love
so
her
I'll
design,
put
and I
her-
actually felt really bad for her.
She's like a B or A.
Okay, so major spoilers, obviously. She's the one who quote-unquote kills Kazuma. And, like, I was so mad at whoever did it, but, like, at the same time, it managed to be the one person where I felt bad about it. Like, that even though she killed, like, a main character.
Yeah, because she's running away from a place that like basically
Or mid-A.
her like extorted her talents.
Mhm.
I'm putting her mid A.
Yeah, I'm putting her in A as well. I think I like her better than Garan. Or no, I like her better than Will. No, I like her better than Misty. Misty, I like it. There we go.
Bruce fair play.
Why?
He's okay.
I don't care.
He's a D character for me.
I like his character.
I mean, it's cool that he comes back as the foreman for the next
I will-
trial.
Where's
He's in,
Lady
like,
First? I'll put him
low
next to
key.
Lady First.
Yeah.
Broly beat.
Rolly.
I honestly think you should put
he's
both
got a-
together.
He's got a really cute design, honestly.
Mhm, I do like Broly and Pat
All
a
I
lot.
wanted was a night out with my wife.
Man, I'm not gonna lie. I don't like Marlon Rhymes. Just like his dead fish eye, just staring at me. I might just move to D just so I don't have to look at it.
Ollie and Patricia are both A. They're both A.
Mm-hmm.
Like high A, actually.
Where the fuck did I put Marlon? Oh, I see him. No, I'm moving Marlon Rhymes down. Fuck this.
Actually, you know what? I'm putting them in B. I lied.
I'm putting them in B as well.
Yeah, why did I move Regina so high up? Put her back down there.
Put that back.
Yeah, I put that back.
No, we don't do that.
I like
here.
it more than Larry. Sorry.
Yeah. You know what? Actually, Pat and Rolly?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do actually. You know what? You're
Both
right.
together.
I like
Hey,
Rolly
you're
better than
better-
Pat. I mean, I think I like Pat better than Rolly.
Benedict, let's go.
Oh, Ashley Graydon. Okay.
I just know him as Egg Benedict.
Mm-hmm.
I'm S. I feel bad for him.
I don't know if
I
he's
could-
S. I put him in A.
Low S, high A. Low
Yeah,
S.
I'm thinking.
I don't really know enough about him to make a.
So he's
judge,
he's thrice.
but,
He's the
like-
victim. He's the son of the victim from Case 3, the one Magnus McGildy kills.
Yeah, I read the case synopsis, but like I never really saw it. Well, it doesn't give me enough because I never saw him develop do the case. Which that's what I meant. Sorry.
He's the one that plotted. He is the one that killed Magnus,
Mhm.
basically.
Yes. Well, I know the plot. I know the case plot. My problem is that I didn't see it. Like I didn't see him like play out.
Honestly, he's not that interesting
No.
as a character. I'm gonna move him down to B. I think I'll put him behind Pat and Rolly.
I'll put him in like a C. I do like his character.
I like his
design,
character,
so.
and honestly, I like him a lot more. As
Ryunosuke! Sorry.
S plus.
Here.
I like him better than Phoenix. Sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah, same.
he's not as good as Honestly, Apollo's the best villain.
I don't know. I would rank Ryu. I think I might rank Ryu a little higher. Ryu was really funny.
Yeah. So
I
got.
have a infinite bias with Apollo, so yeah, sorry.
Graydon did kill Pop Windabank.
Yeah, true.
Who the fuck? What is his name?
He's the coin guy and like
Yeah, I know, but like, what's his name?
1-1.
He's the one that's trying to sell the
Studio.
No, I know who. Curio. Like, what is his name though?
Curio Collecta.
Oh no. Oh.
Is it with a C or a K?
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Oh yeah,
Curio
Curio Korekuta. Yeah, that's right. I remember now.
Honestly, he's
I
E.
see.
Oh. It's the pun. Oh my god. Oh,
Kurio Kore.
I'm so mad at this.
Yo, it took you that long?
Yes. Literally one of the first witnesses you meet, and I just now figured this out.
Honestly, he's just an E. He's just there for
He's
like.
there, yeah.
I like the fucking earlobes, that's about it.
Yeah, he does the earlobes better than the Amanos, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I like him better than like most of these characters in E tier.
Hosonaga! He's B. I just
Really?
wish you get to see him.
Hosanaga's A
more.
for me. A
He's
or
an
like
A.
or low S. I don't know.
You don't see. I feel like you just don't see him enough. I think.
But when you do see him, he makes quite the impression.
He makes a
Yeah.
really good impression. Him in the fucking swimsuit with the decoy turtle.
Mhm.
I needed more time.
How about Joel with his fucking? I phoned an investigator in Japan. I dressed this telegram to an inspector in Japan, and like you're like, Hosanaga, my boy.
Seishiro Jigoku.
Oh god, Seishiro.
Actually
Shizuka.
easy S tier for me.
You like him, huh? Yeah, I like him
Yeah,
too. I don't know if I like him that
though.
much. Actually, you know what? I
He's
will
like-
put him.
Actually, no, I put him in best. What the hell? All right, you're going back.
character
To
we're
S tier.
talking about?
Sorry, Seishiro.
Oh,
Judge
the murderer
Shigoku.
judge. Yeah.
I
Judge with a name, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
judge with the actual name,
Evil-
so he's definitely better
evil-
than like every other.
evil Japanese judge. I give him a. I'll put him at B.
I think I'll put him above Roger Ratons.
Yeah, he's above.
Ooh, oh,
I like him
sexy.
enough to Shelly the Killer. Yes, I do like him a little bit more than Shelly the Killer. There you go.
Actually,
Shams! The
That's
best. Sorry.
Twink, my twink.
He's best. He's best. Sorry.
I'm putting him above Trucy. No, not above Trucy. Below Trucy, above Gina and Iris.
I'm putting him above the judges. Sorry.
Toseki.
I love
Nah,
Soseki.
Soseki! I love like the fucking like Power Rangers pose he does.
My favorite character that's based on a real life character.
Yeah.
A real life person.
Dude, I like him. Where do I put him? I would definitely put Soseki above the judge, the Canadian and Koreanese judge.
He's low S for me, but I still like him.
I'm putting in mid S.
Susato!
S
Oh!
S plus. She's my favorite. I like her better than my sorry. She's my favorite assistant.
I really like her. She's super high S for me.
Yeah.
Actually, don't. Ew, I actually don't. What? Hi, Farron.
You know what?
Hey, Farron.
Hey
Hi,
Farron.
welcome.
Major
Real nice
spoilers. Be
square
careful.
test.
Oh
Yes,
yeah, we're in these spoilers.
We're ranking characters, and we're in the Great Ace Attorney, and we are talking spoilers. So yeah, I'm sorry. I'll So if you got a dip after rating, I understand. So.
Ayesa Nosa.
Oh yes, Yesanosa. I like Yesanosa. He's fun.
He's a high B, low A.
If the inspector decided to investigate my slab of meat, it would be over.
Why are you're accusing your child?
I know, right? Also, Bear, what were you playing? What were you playing?
Maybe we should stop and just like converse with Farron a little bit before we keep ranking these. I don't know. It's up to you. But yeah, Farron, I hope your stream was good. Don't forget, yes, Sholm, they did do a collab stream. Sholmes invented VTubing.
Yes.
Incredible.
Also, okay, now that we're DGS, can we talk about that fucking weed prevention ad?
Yes. Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
So, we're continuing, or?
I guess we can continue now. Yes, Sanosa, I don't know where to put him.
Oh, we were playing Blossom Tales, the Sleeping King, and Blossom Tales, the Sleeping King, and totally ignoring the game. Yeah.
I put Yes and Nosa in mid B's.
Yeah.
Crunch.
I would put him there too.
Sorry,
above
you heard
Delicia.
the apple crunch.
Actually, above Old Bag and Lucky and Penny and Callias and.
Okay, Takisuchi no Ouchie though.
Honestly,
Okay.
really fun. The
Yeah.
best Pain, actually.
Yeah.
Honestly, he's the best. He's so fucking funny.
Mm-hmm.
I'm putting it at low A.
Yeah, I'm putting him in A. Taketsuchi Ouchi is one of my. This is so funny. I'll put him.
A.
I'll put him
Watermark.
above Plum Kitaki. Gregson. Well, we know where Flargrah stands on this one.
Watermark.
I love
Oh
that.
yeah, Fair. I need to DM you a question about something regarding the charities. Just additional info. So I'll just DM you about that after.
Guess what, guys?
Elias!
Guess what, guys? We're coming up on 2.5 hours.
Let's go. Honestly, much
Almost
shorter.
done. We're almost done.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're almost done.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Gregson's going to Watermark because, yeah.
Gregson's great. I'll put him in S+. I'll put him next to Gumshoe, I think.
He's in best for me.
The fact that in the short amount of time that we got to know him, that he could be close to, that he could make such an impression on me as Gumshoe,
I know.
is incredible.
Love that part. And then they just kill him. It's like, no.
Be careful.
I
Yeah,
know.
I know. It's like, yeah, major spoilers. Again.
Yeah, sorry about that, but.
No, you
Like-
gotta be
It's
careful.
like.
We
What?
did.
Okay.
We did warn you.
Ringo. This is Ringo, right?
This is
Okay,
Ringo.
he's-
Yes.
He's going where his brother is.
I'm wondering where his brother. Yeah.
Where the fuck did I
Yeah.
put his brother? There's so
There he
many
is.
characters. I can't figure out where I put him.
Found him.
There he is. There he is. Okay. No. I think I like Waluigi better than Wario.
Sorry, everyone on stream is gonna hear like Apple ASMR munching, which is not
Mhm.
very professional, but this is not a professional stream, so
Yeah.
it's
He
fine.
has 2 characters time.
Okay, yeah, no. DGS2, let's go.
Oh, no, we're not done with
We're-
DGS2. We're still in DGS 1.
Oh, we are. No,
Bird and Green. No.
Why is
Bird and
Olive Green where she is?
She was the victim.
Oh, right.
She was the victim in
Yeah, but no, we should count her as, I think from here on, every single character that we're about to talk about has a
Easy
pretty,
S tier,
it's a
easy
really
S tier.
high
I say S
connection.
tier and I fucking put her in best. Alright, I'm just gonna keep having that
Easy.
problem,
She's
okay?
an A.
Sorry.
She's an A.
I love
I feel-
her relevance.
I feel so bad for Olive Green, honestly.
Uh,
I'll put her in low
that
S.
she was about to offer stuff before the end. Like, oh
Mhm.
no.
Walking
no.
in on that was like absolutely heartrending.
I was like, uh-oh.
Wagahai, I love Wagahai.
Well, I already ranked. Well, you already know where I rank.
Yeah, we
so.
know because you ranked Wagahai first.
Yeah.
Because I asked.
Eugene.
Eugene S plus.
I did not know how much I was gonna like him until like.
I didn't trust him. I didn't trust him.
And then he became Shoals. He's been
You were
Shoals'
so
partner.
suspicious of him. I'm like, damn, bro, I gotta be so sassy of him.
He's Shoals' partner, and he tap dances, motherfucker.
Sorry, I'm just.
Tippity tappity dance.
I'm moving Simon and Franziska up to Watermark now that we've established that as an actual tier.
I have no watermark. Shit, do I have to make one now? I guess I have to make a watermark tier.
I made it so that the Watermark doesn't cover up most of my rankings in the high tiers.
Well, they're gonna cover up all your favorite characters now.
Well, no, it's
No, because it goes on the right corner. So as long as I don't put too many characters in watermark, we're fine. And I only plan on putting these 3.
I've only got a few characters. I only got 2 characters I'm planning for watermark.
Okay, so here's my question: Eugene or Strongheart?
For what?
I'm
Both.
ordering them. I'm ordering them right now.
Both.
Strongheart then Eugene.
So Strongheart first, and then Eugene.
Yeah.
Okay.
Strongheart's.
God, I really marked both of them up above Gumshoe. Jesus Christ.
The thing is, Gumshoe is good, but it's just quite a few characters. There's only a handful of characters that will trump him.
Evie Vigil, I mean, like, she has a great design.
She doesn't do much. All she does helps push you to get fine Vigil.
Oh, and she's the romantic on the jury, I think.
So I put her on D.
I think in the original version, she's like obsessed with Van Zeeks. I think.
So she's you.
Yeah, pretty much. But in that case, I'm just gonna put her in like C tier probably.
I put her in D.
I'm putting her above Lady first and Beppo and stuff just because of design. Hairbrain. Oh, I like Hairbrain actually.
Fuck you! I'm putting Olive Green in watermark.
Are you?
Yes.
Hairbrain's a little B. Hairbrain's a little B for me.
Hairbrain's a high or a mid A, I think.
Spells.
Hold on. I haven't ranked.
Hold on, I didn't even rank Evie yet. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna rank Hairbrain.
Rosie, hurry up.
I'm sorry, I was organizing watermark characters. Okay, shut up.
Where the fuck? When did I grab? Okay, when did I grab Olive Green? Now I don't remember where she was before.
How did you get, bitch?
Because where the fuck is? Who was I ranking? No, where the fuck did I put? Who are we ranking? Who was before to spells?
Hairbrain.
Hairbrain. Where did I put him? I can't find him. I dropped him.
I dropped my bait.
There he is. Oh, he's an S. Okay, no, he doesn't belong in S. I'm sorry, but I will put him above Seer. I will put him above the delights.
Easy A at least.
To spells, oh S.
Well, you have an emote of her, so.
Yeah, so like just from design stuff, just like S. I'll put her above Pavlova.
That's supposed to be an A for me.
Actually, you know what? Yeah, I'll put her above Elise.
What about Mommy Scythe though?
Mommy Scythe is also going in S. Are you kidding me?
S.
I'll put her just below spells. Okay, so Rosie.
Yes.
I had an idea for an emote, but it's an animated emote.
Okay, what?
Show him sour, please. Of him doing the little dance.
Which dance?
The hologram dance.
Oh, that'd be really good. That'd be really funny.
I need that. Adrian B. Meterman, what am I supposed to do with him?
He's an E or D.
He like exists, I guess.
Yeah, he's in like E for exist, I guess. Better than Grossberg, though.
I know, right? Wait, shit, I didn't rank Mommy Scythe. Hold on, she's like A. I don't know. She didn't do spells to be like lesbians together. Who knows?
Yeah, no, they can be. To spells being 26 still blows my mind because that whole thing with Professor happened when she was 16.
Oh, Enoch.
I love Trevor,
thought
actually.
She was like older, honestly, like at least in her 30s.
Trevor's honestly in C for me. He's okay.
I love Trevor. His animations are some of the best in the series.
So yeah, Flargrah, you have no taste. Sorry.
His animations are some of the best in the series. His music is fantastic. I'm putting him in A.
Grab Angel Star. Where the fuck did I put drop? There you are. I'll put him in high B.
Daily Vigil, I absolutely love.
Daily Vigil's great. He's an A.
Is gossip in this?
I love Daily Vigil's intimidation to like bury Caden.
Oh my god, they didn't put gossip in here.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah,
it's inconsistent. You know what? They probably ran out of characters.
Why is Sandwich Shipper not fucking gossip?
You know what happened? They probably ran out of things of space for characters. No, they didn't.
Maybe.
No, they didn't, because you can fit almost all of the Pokemon on this.
Yeah.
Oh, never mind.
So, Twy, when were you gonna do a all Pokemon ranking?
I'm halfway through that actually.
Like.
If you want to do that, I'll do it with you.
I could do that. We'll have to do it by separate gens, though.
Yeah, well, I would go in order.
We'll do it all in one sitting.
Yeah. I think we
Well,
could do the
Gen-
first 4. It took me 45 minutes to do the first 4 gens, so...
So on Genshin now?
Well, I'm still trying to rank Daily Vigil. I think I'm going to put him in A with
Yeah, we're on
Hosonaga.
Genshin Impact right now. By the
Oh, I'm sorry, Genshin.
Genshin
no,
Impact.
you're right, Genshin. No, you're right, Genshin Impact.
No.
Whoa. Solid Plasma. Hello. Welcome to the Great Ace Attorney ranking stream. The Ace Attorney characters ranking stream. Thank you so much for the raid. How was your stream? Please beware of spoilers, okay?
Yeah, we're spoiling a lot of shit.
If you have
literally
not
at the end
played through all of the... Welcome in, Wild Phoenix. Welcome in, everybody. My name is Solid49 I'm a variety streamer. Currently ranking all of the Ace Attorney characters that have ever existed, except for the ones in the crossover, because I haven't played it. Please beware of spoilers, because, like, we're at the very end of this, and now it's going to be Spoiler City. So...
These are the character we're about to enter.
Yeah, we are pretty much spoiling the entirety of Great Ace Attorney 1 and 2, so, if you plan on playing those, please don't risk it. We'll catch up later, but I appreciate the raid so much.
I got a fucking bunch of tea. We spilled it all over.
Yeah, we spilled a lot of it. Honestly, we've already gotten through some of the biggest characters already. But there's still a huge subset of characters coming, so...
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's that's hot, I guess. That's about it.
Yeah, no.
I'm gonna, like, see.
Yeah.
Who are we talking about?
Genshin.
Asogi's dad. The prince guy, he exists, I guess. Okay.
No, I'm putting Gots in F tier. I don't care.
he's interesting. He's not hemorrhoids for me.
No, he's bad. I cannot stand.
Gots.
I could not stand Gots. When I did the voice for Gots, I sounded like Bjork. Because it's like...
I thought you said gods for some reason. I was like, you're forsaking God.
No, I think I will let you know, Plasma, but I think we're gonna end it here because I've been live for like 6. When I finish this, I think we're gonna end it because I've been live for 6 hours.
After we're done with this too.
9, 10, 11, 12, 13.
This is also taking slightly longer than I thought it would.
We have like 1 row left of characters, so
Alright, Ray.
She's like A.
Yeah.
I lied. She's us.
Sorry. I'm still ranking Gods. Where in
I'm
it?
putting a.
I will put Gots above the Amanos, at least. And no, I'll put him. Actually, you know what? He's probably the best F tier we have. My name is Wilhelm Gottschalk Sigismund von Ornstein, and I am the Prince of Bohemia. I am very rich.
Barry Caden.
I wanted to say Kanik for some reason.
Hold on. What do we decide on Ray? Because I like her, but like.
I put A. I put her in low S. I lied.
I'm gonna put her in high. Actually, no, I'll put her in low S. I think she's above Seishiro. Oh, Barry Caden.
Did I really rank Seishiro that high? Jesus Christ, I'm gonna redo that.
I'll put him in.
Barry Caden was the hardest voice for me to do the entire playthrough. Because
he's
very Scottish and his voice is very deep, and I was not sure how to. I cannot do both those voices at the same time, so it became very, very difficult for me.
Hey, Mami Mommy. Actually, no, wait, sorry.
Write in many memo.
I was thinking his Japanese name. My bad.
Yeah, but his Japanese name is Write in many memo. I'm kidding.
Nuh-uh.
Where is where would I put Barry Caden? I don't know. B. For Barry.
C.
I
C.
I like him better than like. I'll put him with Genshin. You know what?
I like Mommy Memo. I like
Mommy Memo.
Yeah, that's his original name.
Is that his name? I thought you said Mommy.
No, I did.
Okay.
So Many Memo.
Many Memo. Oh, I don't know where to put him. Like he did the world a great service.
Yeah. His original name is Heita Mame.
Yeah, I'm putting him B because
I was close.
Mommy's memos.
I keep forget. Mame Mommy. Yeah. Mommy memos.
Yeah, that's what I was laughing at. I don't know. He did the world a great service. I will tell you that.
Oh, yes, he did.
He did nothing wrong. It honestly did nothing wrong, except try to frame Ray.
Big walking spoiler himself.
Hold on, I still don't know where to put Many Memo. I think I'll put him in like low A.
Sorry.
So I'm trying to re-rank Gant because I'm conflicted on where to put him.
You really
Okay.
ranked Seishiro high, didn't you? Oh,
No,
Clint?
No,
No,
Gant.
I'm asking. No, you mentioned that you put Seishiro too high, and I'm just now wrapping around to that. I'm processing what you said before.
No, where I put him. No, where I put him in like next to Viridian, which I'm gonna put a little bit, as you know. They're about the same. Okay.
Clint Van Zeeks. Why do I have to rank him?
He's hot, I
He
guess.
is hot, but he's not as hot as his brother.
Put Clint at A.
Oh my god, Many Memo's theme just came on as I was struggling to rank Many Memo.
I mean, he was hot enough to have a wife and like get like.
And
have
bang,
kids.
yeah.
So,
He did
Have a
bang.
daughter.
yes.
I don't know. I think I'll put Clint Van Zeeks in like
He's in B.
I'll put them with you know what? I'm gonna put him next to Genshin. I don't give a shit. Oh god, Peppino De Rossi. Yeah.
He exists, I guess. All right.
He's with
E.
gods. Hey, I'm just gonna go and slide this up to Warmar.
I know Maria Gori is fantastic actually. So
He's
she's
very-
Going to Warmar.
she's going in S plus as well. I think I'll put her I'll put her below the animals though. I love her, but you know.
I love her a lot. so
Actually, you know what? I
I'm
like her better than Gregson, but I need to move Gregson a little bit.
I'm putting her with Gregson and Watermark because yes.
No. All right, Christoph, we're going below Simon. Let's go.
That's-
As for Simon, he's at the top because I put Clavier like water.
Which Simon?
Top of S.
No, which Simon?
Blackwill.
Okay.
Oh my god.
You think
Masked
I would really
Man.
put Simon Keys at like S?
No, but like I
No,
wanted to
really?
know.
Masked Man without the cloak, he got some titties, so I'll put him in like.
Really?
I'll put him.
I think I have to put him next to Cosmo.
Yeah, you're right. I kind of had to put him next
Are you
to.
Cosmo?
But I think I like Kazuma's design. I don't know. I miss the headbands, but he has a better design overall as Masked Man.
I know. He got that titty too. They show the titty.
Yes, you and your titty.
Listen, sorry. I'm appreciative of all kinds of titty.
Alright, I'm just gonna put your partner in crime with
Male
him.
and female,
Yeah,
okay.
I'm gonna put because like here's the thing, they're not bad characters, so I feel bad about putting them in. No, I'm not gonna put them in F actually because I like them enough.
Is that chicken stroganoff?
Yeah, that's
I already
chicken.
put the redhead in like E. Okay.
I put them in D.
Yeah, I'm putting. You know what? I'm putting the redheads in D. You're right.
Yeah, I put him in D.
I like them both
Oh my
better
God,
than
what the
Meekins.
Oh
and
no!
Gaspin.
All right, now I'm having the problem. Where the fuck is this? Okay, there he is. All right.
Where's beef?
Friggin', he was right above Machi.
Where-
Where
put beef
where
at?
did I put beef stroganoff? Found
Where
him.
did I put my beef stroganoff?
I didn't put this high up, did I?
I put them both
Queen
in C.
Bee!
Jesus
Alright,
Christ.
I'll put Queen. Okay, I'll put Queen Bee in like B tier. I really like.
I do
design,
like Queen
actually.
Bee a lot. I think I like them better than Barry, Kate, and
Ew, I'm gonna.
Olga.
Maybe it's an. Actually, I'll put it.
Who the fuck is this dude? I'm putting him
Oh
in
my
hemorrhoids. I just hate how he looks.
Oh god. Monsieur
He's the god.
DeLune. DeLune, he's the
He's the
balloon
god.
man. Yeah. He's
I
testifies
don't
with
care
gods.
about him. I'm putting him in hemorrhoids.
Where's Beppo at? There's Beppo.
Put Sandwich and Beppo next to each other.
Yeah. Oh god. Oh
Kobe.
no, I lost him.
Where is
Beppo, where'd you go?
Where? There he is.
Beppo, where'd you go?
Where is
I can't find him.
Signore DeLune? I don't know where to put him. I like him better than Gods by a lot. I think I like
I
him.
put Loon. I put
Oh,
Loon
I
with
found
the
you.
blue.
Oh, there
spot.
you are. You're right next to Frank Sott. Ew, are you really?
Toby,
above
finally.
Jake-
Okay,
Ew,
S.
are you really below Jake Marshall?
I'm putting Toby ahead of
And
Waga
the-
And
High.
you know what? Fuck it. I'm putting Beppo above. I'm putting Beppo and Sandwich above Lada and Dijun Huang.
Did I do that? No, oh my god. You know what? Yeah, I'm putting them above Lada. I don't give a shit.
I'm done with my list.
Wait, you're done already?
What the hell?
Yeah.
Oh, Venus. I love her design so much.
You just did Venus or Shakespeare? Shakespeare without us? Damn. Okay. Okay,
Fake
bitch. I see
friend.
how it is.
Fake friend.
Wow. I mean, I know where you're gonna put Chancellor up, and I put the same area too.
So like Venus is actually like really pretty.
I know she's like super cute.
I don't know where to put
Here's I
her.
put on.
Alright,
put her on-
anyways, I'm gonna put Shakespeare in like S tier.
I'm gonna
that's what it's
put her
for.
next to Gayru.
I put her in B.
And Shamspear, S.
S.
Easy. Yeah, sorry, Maria.
Is he S
sorry,
plus?
Maria.
He's actually. I feel like he, as one of my favorite side characters, he might need to go above all of the other side characters.
You're right. He's really fun. Actually, sorry, I'm putting him in best. I lied.
Yeah, I'm putting him in S plus. He's below the no, he's above the Orca.
We're done. All right, now we have to rearrange it.
Oh no.
But it's been like the last 10 minutes doing this.
Yeah.
I'm not rearranging it. I'm saving it and downloading this.
Yes, Shamspear is an S plus because Shamspear is so fucking funny. Like, it's funny because, like, at first I couldn't stand him.
Alright, you know what? I'm putting Shamspear watermark.
You? Jesus, you like him that much, huh?
Actually, no. Sorry, animals stay top. Sorry. The animals are top.
Actually, you know what? I do like Toby better. Sorry, I like Toby better than the judges.
I need to get some sleep, guys. I'm sorry.
Good night, Flargrah. No, you're fine.
Have a good night, guys.
Night.
At first, I could not stand William Shamspear, but the more he just started growing on me, and the more I thought about him, I was like, oh my god, this dude's so funny. He dances too. He'd be a fun sour please emote, actually.
His is really fun. His dances are really funny. Potentially dance.
Toby should be next to Gina, actually. William Potentia, yeah, I do know that.
Yeah, I get. No. Say sure. You go back. You're down at you're bottom S tier. Sorry.
Trying to figure out what I would redo because I have watermark is Barack, Blackquill, and Francisco.
I have too many C tiers. I'm just gonna leave it.
My B tier ended up the most filled somehow.
My C tier is like 5 rows.
Why is Big Wins up here?
If I literally added 2 more characters, I would have 6 row C tiers.
Why is Big Wins where he is? Okay, Bucky, you go down. Okay. This is craziness.
Oh yeah, this is Phantom Steam's playing right now, I guess. Kind of a banger, honestly.
Yeah.
We gotta do themes at some point.
We do. There is a character themes tier list.
I kind of want shit. Do I really?
You want shit, huh?
No, I'm trying to see. I'm thinking of swapping Strongheart with Simon. So Blackpool would be at best, and then Strongheart would be at S.
Wait, Paperstar, where did I put Cammy?
You put him like B, I think. Hold on. Scroll back down. I see her. She's like low B, next to Butler, next to the bellboy.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's fine. I think I like her there. Olga needs to go down a little bit, actually. This is so hard.
Ew, I really ranked Bobby that high? Sorry.
You ranked Bobby high and you're regretting it?
It was like he was like in mid-ish B tier.
Yeah, I put Bobby at high B. Moving him down.
I have like 4 rows of B, so you know.
Yeah, I think I started a 5th row of B because Angel Star is here. I like Drebber a lot, so I'm keeping him where he is.
Yo, did I really put the Korean judge at A? I'm putting you below. But I'm putting you below Eldu Noodle, sorry.
Did you put Eldoon in A?
Yeah, I put him below A.
Oh, I also put him in A, actually.
Yeah.
Why did I put Korean judge in S?
Where the hell?
No. I like Korean judge, but not that much. Jesus Christ. The fact that Sandwich got a slot and Gossip didn't is just killing me.
What?
The fact that Sandwich got a slot on this one, Gossip didn't.
I know, right?
Your top 3 overall. Oh, sorry, I didn't see what you said, Brabbit. Yeah, but Sholmes, Godot, and Gumshoe. Yeah, Sholmes is fantastic, and I'm actually going to. No, I think he's good where he is, but like, oh, it's so confusing because like I love Maya and Phoenix, but Sholmes is just fantastic, actually.
My top 3 is just like, who's the most kissable? At this point, I'm just like, yeah, I have biases.
I like how the person immediately after William Shakespeare in the list, the next person we would have had to rank if we did the crossover, looks like William Shakespeare.
Yeah. Ew.
I feel like I might move Drebber like way the fuck up.
Oh, it's just so hard. It's so hard.
Organizing this is really hard.
I know.
I put Eenie Miney that high?
Yes, you did.
Oh. She's still above Right and Many Memo, but Many Memo at least did the world a service.
I know, right?
Army Buff is going above Luke at me, I don't care.
When you not much you keep suck. Sorry, I just saw.
Is that what you associate with
Knightley.
Forrest Knightley now? I feel like I have to link that image. No.
It's really funny. Now that I remember it existing, it's just really funny now.
Toby, Gina, and Franziska. No, that's a solid list. Paper Star. You know what? Gina deserves to be moved up too. Fuck it.
Man, ew.
Actually, no, she doesn't.
Yeah.
Strongheart's staying where he is because I really love Strongheart in S+. He's probably my favorite Ace Attorney villain.
Ew. Actually, I'm not gonna rank Waki that high now.
No, where is Waki? Because I know I put him too high.
I put him next. He was like above like Ron and like Luke and like Wendy and Yop. And I put him next to his mom. So.
I put Waki in B. Nayuta's still in C. Dude, the fact that Beppo, Sandwich, and the Stroganovs all made it above Lotta is something else.
You know what you do? You put Beppo on one end, beef stroganoff, and what's his brother's name?
Chicken
stroganoff, and then sandwich at the end. A beef and chicken sandwich. Let's go.
That would be really funny. Oh shit, Tispelda's theme came on. God, do I really want another great Ace Attorney emote? Because like looking at these characters, I have ideas.
I'm basically done. I'll live.
Yeah, I think I can live with this for the most part. Move Windabank above Pierce Nickety. Move Darien down. Move Sheena and Callisto down, actually.
Let me download! Why aren't you letting me download?
Do you have an account?
I don't.
You should make one, because that's how you save it and download it.
No, because it let me download the case one.
Oh, really? Wild.
Yeah.
God, can we please come back to this in like a year?
Yes.
It'd be so funny.
And then we'll be like, ew, why we do this?
What happened?
I know, right?
Because right now, these feel like the best possible
Let
places.
me download, bitch! Oh my god.
Sasha Buckler?
Oh,
No,
god.
go
Alright,
down.
okay, cool. Alright, it did it.
Sasha Buckler needs to be way down there. So does Terust and me. So does Norma.
Okay, I got it.
So does Machi and LaBelle. And
Alright,
Rhoda.
it downloaded for me. It just took me like forever. I have to rename these now. Case ranking.
Yeah, no, Rabbit, Shelly the Killer is not, like, the best guy, but he's honestly one of the more honorable people in that case, and also he's really
Yeah.
well written.
I'm pretty much done, yeah.
Yeah, I can't think of anything else I would... Oh, I might... No, Gaspin deserves to be lower than... You know what? I like Meekins more than Gaspin Payne. Yeah, I don't... Fuck it, we're done. Ace Attorney... Director... Tier list. Jesus, this is so big!
I don't know why, but for some reason my list got so much larger for some reason. I'll live.
That's a lot of stuff going on. Can't believe Gots is at the top of my F tier. I am the Prince of Bohemia. Honestly, one of the more fun voices I had to do. Yeah, the Killer's a fantastic character. No, but this was great. This was really fun. I enjoyed this. Music next. Where's the character themes next?
Yes.
And then, like, characters in terms of how attractive they are.
Yes.
We have ideas. I feel like I could literally find something to tier list with Ace Attorney for, like, years. Or, like, at least months.
We're gonna have to make a custom tier list with the hot one, though.
I mean, we could just use this one and find the hot characters.
Yeah, it's true.
Because when you make the account, you're allowed to name the tier list.
Oh, I don't have that, so yeah.
So I made, because you don't even have to make an account, you just connect it to your Twitter.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, no, this is solid.
This was fun.
Wow, I really put Maria Gori high, but she deserves it.
She deserves it.
Oh, thank you for coming, Rabbit and everyone.
Yeah, thanks for coming. I didn't think, this would be more as fun as it has been right now.
Yeah, no, this is a lot of fun. We laughed a lot. It's like the struggles were really funny to listen to. Everybody be like, "Where the fuck do I put this person?"
Well, it was you guys at first, and then it slowly turned into also me. So I'm like, "Oh no, where's mine?"
No, the best was like, "Oh fuck, where did I put him? I lost him."
Yeah, I know, right?
Oh lord. Honestly, I'm amazed at how, like, evenly distributed these are.
I know, right?
But yeah, this was really fun. I can't believe that I played Pokemon before this.
Crazy.
But I've been live for 6 hours, 6.5 almost.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, Westerford, don't get me wrong. We didn't do this the entire time. I played Pokemon for about half of the stream.
Yeah.
So, like, we didn't start until 11:30.
Basically.
The case ranking took 5 hours because we kept going back and forth and
we did.
discussing like everything we could think of. No, 11:30 p.m. Westerford. Like literally everything we could think of we were considering in the case rankings, but this one is just like, how do we feel about them? God, but thank you so much for coming out, Rosie, and Flargrah too, even though he's not here anymore. This is fun. Do more co-stream stuff.
It's fun. Oh, at some point I want to do power washing because they put out their multiplayer stuff.
Oh, they did. That's right.
Yeah. Also, sorry, no music on my end because oops, it stopped on accident. Oh, it's fine. I'll live. But I really like doing co-op streams. It's fun. I want to do power wash because multiplayer.
Yeah, I could buy that game.
It's good. I'll give it to you.
No, you won't. Stop. Relax. Don't give me anything. I'm fine.
Is that a challenge?
No. No, I'm not challenging you. Because I know you. Yeah, we should probably find somebody to raid. We can do like a co-raid if you have people.
Oh, that would be fun.
Come on, mouse. Focus. Oh, I guess I can stop Let me go to intermission now.
Mhm.
Jules is like, I raided Jules the last time I went this long, though. I could raid Rosie.
Wow, my god, I could raid twice.
Wow. Wow, 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 wow. You know what, we'll raid Jules, because I don't really have anyone else to raid. What are we gonna raid with?
I don't know. Where the fuck is Beef Stroganoff?
Where did I put beef stroganoff?
Yes. Also, you're gonna have to help me with the break.
I'm gonna have to help you with what?
Hold on. Actually, if I just go to my channel, I can probably just raid right now.
Mm-hmm.
Cause I didn't have that tab open.
Hold on, let me do my little. Why? Why did you do that?
It was only $20.
No wifing in the club, Rosie. Give me $20. Anyway.
I gave you $20.
Thanks. Anyway, if you are not following me on Twitter, good for you. Don't. If you are not in my if you're not in the Discord, you can be. If you want to, we're probably gonna do more fun stuff in there soon. I keep saying that, but like eventually. And charity. That's right. We have the Smile Time charity event happening this month, December 17th through 19th, 11 a.m. to 2 a.m. You can find the schedule and the Twitch channel there. You can also follow it on Twitter at twitter.com/charityfuntime. And lastly, if you are not following all of the great streamers on the list, you can do so by clicking on this Twitch team link. Rosie, myself, and Flargrah are all parts of this, and we are very excited for the show we have planned for you this month. So check it out. We're raising money to prevent cancer. It's a great cause, as I'm sure the name implies. And yeah, can't wait to see you guys there and have fun. See you later.
Right.
Now let's raid Jules and come up with a raid message.
Raid.
Am I really gonna put where was my beef stroganoff? You should put where was my chicken stroganoff.
Oh, you're right. I should. Hold on. Alright, bye guys. Whee!
Wait, I'm not done.
Okay, sorry. I already...
Did you go with beef or chicken?
I'm gonna go with chicken.
Okay. Are you ready? Are you on their channel?
Yes, I'm on his channel, but I forgot if the raid went off because it's been a while.
I'm just gonna hit raid now then. So let me type in the raid message. See you guys there. Have a great night, everybody. Thanks for coming out. Bye.
See ya. Well, I ended mine earlier, so I'll live.